Why did I choose this face?
It's like I'm trying to tell myself something. Like I'm trying to make a point. But what is so important that I can't just tell myself what I'm thinking? I'm not just being rhetorical here. You can join in.
I don't like it.
What?
Your face.
Well, I don't like it either. But it's all right up until the eyebrows. Then it just goes haywire. Look at the eyebrows. These are attack eyebrows. You could take bottle tops off with these.
They are mighty eyebrows indeed, sir.
They're cross. They're crosser than the rest of my face. They're independently cross. They probably want to seed from the rest of my face and set up their own independent state of eyebrows. That's good. I am Scottish. I've gone Scottish.
Oh, yes, you are. You are definitely Scots, sir. I hear it in your voice.
Oh, no, that's good. It's good. I'm Scottish. I'm Scottish. I am Scottish. I can complain about things. I can really complain about things. Now, give me your coat.
No,
I am cold.
I'm cold.
I'm cold. There's no point in us both being cold. Give me your coat. Give me your coat. No, wait. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up! I missed something. It was here. It was here. It was... What was it? I saw... What did I see? This is what I saw. Spontaneous combustion.
Oh, what devilry is this, sir?
I don't know, but I probably blame the English.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast. With me, Matthew. I'm screwing up the intro for the first time in ages, goddamn. With me, Matthew, and as always...
Scott, hello. You forgot your own name there for a second, did you?
I did. I stumbled over my own name.
Amazing.
Pretty impressive, I think. This week we are covering Deep Breath, Peter Capaldi's first episode. And in doing so, Scott, you know what I realised?
Yes?
We have now covered at least one episode of every era of New Who.
That's true, yes.
This is our last Doctor in New Who that we haven't covered, which we're scratching off today, which is pretty interesting that we've covered so many Doctors in such a short period of time.
We've also done a lot of first episodes. This is our fifth first episode for a Doctor. Because we did the movie, we did Rose, we did this one.
We did the 11th Hour.
Yes,
we did.
That's 5.
Yeah.
I can count.
Yeah. We did The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah. Oh, dropped my phone.
Yeah. What a weird pattern we've discovered there. This episode originally aired on August 23rd, 2014, which was Saturday, and was 6 years, 11 months, and 22 days ago, of time of recording, that is. And that is just shocking.
Yeah, that's almost 7 years.
Yeah, Capaldi was announced as the Doctor about 8 years ago, which is why we're actually covering this episode.
Incredible.
This episode, yeah, it's crazy to think 2014 was that long ago. You know, because we were talking about last week about this season 3 being really fresh in our minds still, remembering watching it on TV. This feels even fresher than that. Like, this feels like it was like a year or two ago. Like,
actually, I remember less of Series 8 than I do of Series 3. I think that says a lot.
Wow. Yeah, it says you're not a true fan. There was actually some interesting things that happened on this day. And by interesting, I of course mean there were lots of death, so much death on this day. We were in the like big heat of the Iraqi and Afghanistan war, so it is just devastation across the Middle East, and it's really tragic. But on not so tragic news, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt got married on this day.
Wow.
They're divorced now,
Yep.
but they did get married on this exact day, and I'm sure they sat down after their wedding and put on Doctor Who. Pretty easy question for you this week, which I actually forgot to do last week. Do you have any semblance of an idea, and I would be surprised if you didn't, of who the US president and the UK prime minister were in 2014?
2014, it was still Obama, right?
Indeed, yeah, easy softball right there. But we have a new prime minister every 6 months, so
Was it David Cameron?
it was still David Cameron. This was before the whole Brexit mess and him stepping down, and then we had Theresa May for a hot second, and this is not long after the failed independence referendum, or maybe before.
God, yes, I
don't.
oh.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is time?
Yeah. Well, Indie Ref 2, here we go, baby. Some interesting stuff that did happen. Iceland issued a red alert warning for the, let's see if I can pronounce this word, Barubunga, I'm going to go with. There's like 2 symbols on that word that I don't recognize, but I'm going to say Barubunga again, the Barubunga volcano, which meant that significant emissions were likely. I don't remember if it ever erupted, but it got a red alert.
That's probably something you should have looked into before. Did it erupt?
You want me to look into stuff?
Of
No.
course.
I
Do your research, my dude.
I do my research in all of 2 seconds. Let's find out.
What a speedy man you are.
Oh, look at that. It did erupt. The 2014-2015 eruption of Barubunga was a Hawaiian eruption of the Barubunga volcanic system in Iceland that began on August 29th, 2014 and ended February 27, 2015. The eruption emitted large volumes of sulfur dioxide and impacted air quality in Iceland. That was a hell of a long eruption.
That's what, 6 months? That's
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did it kill anyone, or?
No, I don't think it killed anyone. Just bad air.
That's good. Well, not the air, but it's good. No one died.
Yeah, it's a big volcano. Also, speaking of people dying, an oil tanker carrying 5,000 liters of oil exploded while docking at Lac Bang port in Tan Ho, Vietnam, killing 2 people and injuring 4 others. The fire ignited either in the oil compartment or on the cooking gas cylinders. So we're right in the point in history at the moment, of modern day history that is, where the turning happened. You know, like pre-2012-13, things were terrible, but not super terrible. And then as you get past those into the really mid-2010s, they just get worse and worse and worse and worse. Which is pretty great. Speaking of things getting worse, do you have any guess as to what the #1 song was in the United States?
Again, I can't remember any songs like past 2007, so no clue.
I'll give you a hint. It's not a song I've ever heard of. It's Magic by the artist Rude.
Okay.
Or sorry, it's the artist Magic. The song's Rude. This is written backwards.
Okay, I know what song.
Oh wow, really?
Why do you have to be so rude? Don't you know I'm human too? I'm gonna marry her anyway. Marry that girl, marry that girl.
I'm gonna have to listen to it. I don't recognize it.
Why do you have to be so rude? Don't you
Okay,
know I'm
right.
human too?
Okay, then yes, I do know that song. That was #1 this weekend that this episode aired.
Yikes.
Yeah.
The story about that song is the guy goes to the dad asking if he could marry his daughter, and then the dad is like, no. And then the guy is like, I'm going to marry her anyway. What a shit message for a song. Why ask the dad if you care? Like, it's a stupid message.
Because they did it in the olden times, and the olden times were right. We discussed this already. Right. The #1 and the #2 movies in the cinema will probably make you hate time again. Can you guess what was #1 this weekend at the box office?
I know this is around the time of Guardians of the Galaxy. Is that one of them?
That's the #1 spot. You hit it right on the head.
Yes.
That is the #1 film this weekend is Guardians of the Galaxy, which I can't believe came out almost 7 years ago.
That's insane, yes. Great film, though.
Yeah, very good film. And the number 2 spot, and only number 2 by a couple $100,000 on this day. Do you hazard a guess?
Haven't got a clue.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I've never seen that film. I've never been a fan. Is it
Well,
bad?
what? It's bad. Yeah, I love the Turtles. They got a really good a couple years ago. It's probably actually around 2014. Really good 3D CG animated TV show.
I watched about a season of that when I never watched any more. It was pretty good, yeah.
It's very good. Best theme song in ages for a kids show.
Yeah, it was great.
But that's all I have on a little bit of on this day history. Dark day in history, and I think that's reflected in Doctor Who's change in tone.
Yes. This episode is certainly a lot darker.
Yeah.
So Stephen Moffat, in casting Capaldi, he really wanted to contrast heavily with Matt Smith, and I think we really got that with a darker, more sinister kind of Doctor, didn't we?
Yeah. Something that I think they really didn't do much with after his second season. I think Capaldi's third season's a lot lighter than previous seasons he's did, but this is his first season where it's even edgier than Doctor Who has been. And you get that even with the change in color palette with the show. The show's a lot more grey than it used to be.
It definitely is, yes. I think Peter Capaldi really found his footing in Series 3. I don't think the darker Doctor really fit him too well.
Yeah, I think his first season of Am I a Good Person? Not good. Season 2, where he's Rockstar Doctor, is a soft part in my heart, honestly. I really enjoy it.
Season 2, where he's a rock doctor, is too silly for me. It's too extreme.
I really enjoy it. But then season 3, Professor Doctor is his best Doctor. Professor Doctor is what he should have been from the start. Anyway, as we do with every episode, we do a big deep dive into the writing off. So away you go, Scott.
So, yeah, not much history this time. So Moffat first met Peter Capaldi at a party in 2005, and around this time, obviously, Doctor Who was just starting again, and also the thick of it. The famous Peter Capaldi series had started. Have you seen the thick of it?
Yes, I have indeed. I don't know if I've seen all of it, but I've definitely seen at least the first 2 seasons, and it is a very, very good show.
See, I tried to watch that when I was too young, and I never went back to it, which is on me. I need to go back and watch it.
I think it's maybe a bit dated now, because it's very much off the time politics. Like the feel that politics had off the time, where it's like incompetent bureaucrats and not just incompetence. But it's definitely a good show.
So when Moffat first met Peter, Stephen Moffat was a big fan of the thick of it, and he wanted to talk to Peter Capaldi about this show. But Peter Capaldi had only wanted to talk about Doctor Who with Stephen Moffat. That's how much of a big fan Peter Capaldi was of the show. And I think it's great that he finally got his dream of being the Doctor.
Yeah, the thing with Capaldi that always makes me go, gah, is when people bring up the letter that he wrote to the BBC about Doctor Who when he was like a wee kid.
Yes.
Saying that he wants to be like an actor so he can be a companion with the Doctor one day, and that he loves the show and stuff like that. And it's like, oh my, you're just such a sweet man. Like...
So, of course, we know he was previously considered for the 8th Doctor, but he declined because he thought he wasn't at the stage of his career where he could carry a movie on his own. And for the 11th Doctor, he wasn't considered because Stephen Moffat wanted the Doctor to be lighter and more youthful, which didn't fit Peter Capaldi. So finally, when it came for the casting of the 12th Doctor, the only person Stephen Moffat could think of is literally Peter Capaldi. Like, he couldn't think of anyone else. So he asked Mark Gatiss to make him a list, like a short list of other actors. And Mark Gatiss was sort of like, hey, you have a perfect Doctor in Peter Capaldi. You could just cast him. But Stephen Moffat was just like, no, make a short list for me. I want other ideas. I can't just go with my number one. So Mark Gatiss makes a short list. And at the very top of the list was Peter Capaldi with an arrow pointing to it saying, he's the perfect choice. Does that rule him out? And obviously, obviously, we got the 12th Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi, the only choice, the only person who was cast, auditioned in the role. No other person was auditioned, which is insane.
That is insane. That is crazy. And it's kind of upsetting as well. It's good that he got cast and he was the one that wanted to be cast and things like that. And I'm really glad that he did, because I honestly think he's one of my favorite Doctors, if not my favorite Doctor ever. But I remember there being such controversy around his casting announcement. Like, I remember so many people being upset that the Doctor was, one, another man, and two, now an even older man. Like, which I think really undermined at least his first season of Doctor Who. By the end of his first season, if people didn't like it, they weren't watching. And his seasons didn't do great rating-wise. But I remember, like, so many arguments with friends and stuff like that over Doctor Who about the casting of Capaldi. Of like, oh my god, I can't believe they cast another white old guy to be the Doctor. And I even had, like, one friend I remember sitting in art class at school talking to them and being like, no, Capaldi's a really good Doctor. And they were like, oh, I don't want to watch it. I'm scared he's so old that he's going to fall and break his ankle or something. I'm like, one, that's not how TV shows work. And two, he's not the oldest person to play the Doctor. Like,
It's insane just how quickly the fan reception has changed. I think Clara in this episode is certainly representative of the audience where they didn't want an older Doctor, they wanted him to be youthful and attractive again, which kind of detracts from this episode with the tongue-in-cheek kind of self-meta referential kind of element to it, I think.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that as well. Clara is the audience, where she's like, I can't find the Doctor attractive anymore. Why can't I date the Doctor anymore? He's an old man. And then it gets, like, explained we'll go into it when we see it, but the lizard lady whose name I'm forgetting, where she's like, the Doctor is old. He's an old guy, and this is just what he looks like now. You're going to have to deal with it. It's very much like, if you could have Moffat sit down and talk to camera, that would be this scene. Like,
yes, yeah, I know. And going back a little bit, do you remember the first time we saw him was in the 50th anniversary special? I think that
oh my god.
I think that might have been the best Doctor, first scene with the Doctor, because it's just...
I remember it was so exciting.
Yes, I was in the cinema watching that, and everybody just kind of jumped off of their seats, so excited to just see his eyebrows. It was so exciting.
It is honestly, like, I think one of the best moments in the 50th anniversary, which is already an incredible, like, film of Doctor Who. But it's that moment where it's like, all 12 of them? No, sir. All 13. It's like, oh, yes, he's here. And then, you're like, where's Jodie? What's she doing? But I guess, whatever. But, yeah, that reveal of Capaldi, oh my god, that got me through the stratosphere excited for his new season. Like...
do you remember how Peter Capaldi was announced? Because I think it was the biggest reveal of the Doctor. We did a whole live show on, like, the 4th of August 2013, and it was broadcast live across the UK, US, Canada, and Australia. And it was, like, the biggest thing in the world at the time.
Yeah, okay, I definitely, I didn't see this announcement when it happened, because I remember the exact time and place I was when the announcement happened. Or, because I didn't see the announcement for a few hours, because I was actually in the cinema, and then I remember coming out of the cinema, turning my phone back on, and then, like, going online onto Twitter, and then seeing the notifications everywhere, Peter Capaldi's the Doctor, Peter Capaldi's the Doctor, and be like, oh my god, I missed massive news. Like...
So I was in Florida at the time with no access to basically the outside world. I only got the internet from my Nintendo 3DS, and I mooched off of, like, the free Wi-Fi of the hotel I was at. And all of a sudden I hear, Peter Capaldi is the Doctor? Who the hell is Peter Capaldi?
Yeah, I had the same reaction, because I didn't know who Capaldi was when I was 14 years old either. I remember going on looking at the photos of him, and, like, even myself being like, oh, it's another guy. Like,
yeah.
And then it wasn't until I looked into who Capaldi was and the stuff he had done, where I was like, oh, okay, I'm on board with this guy being the Doctor. And then when it's like, oh, he's also going to be Scottish, it's like, yeah, he is. Like,
But I just remember being at a hotel and just kind of on his Wikipedia page, and I look across the list, and I realized he was in World War Z as Who Doctor, and I was like, haha, that's funny. Haha, coincidence. I mean, I realized he was he was also in Doctor Who before this, and in Torchwood, which is kind of the most depressing. Peter Capaldi is in the most depressing episode of Torchwood ever. Honestly, just the very end, it's very depressing. I can't wait to get to that.
I'm looking forward to seeing it because I've like no experience with Torchwood. Yeah, so Capaldi was originally in the Fires of Pompeii, and I think that is probably the biggest recasting in modern Who history, besides like Martha, of people that have come back to do different roles. Like somebody coming back to be the Doctor, that's already been in the show is, I think, relatively unheard of.
Colin Baker was in an episode with Colin Baker was in an episode with Tom Baker before being the Doctor, but that's only every time it's ever happened with the Doctor.
Yeah, so it was pretty big news when it did happen, and it does, I think, fill you with that slight hope of, if you end up in Doctor Who and you want to be the Doctor but you're not cast as the Doctor, there's always the chance you could be cast again, because Doctor Who has this, like, Mark Gatiss has been like 5 different characters. Like there's always a chance for a recast.
Like David Tennant did stuff for Big Finish before he was cast as the Doctor, which I think is wild.
That is wild.
I've never heard of anything. I've never heard of any of the stories before, but yeah, it's insane just to think David Tennant was in Big Finish before the actual show.
Weird. That's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah, but this live TV broadcast was like planned in 3 weeks, and we tricked the audience by basically saying, hey, this is like a show where we celebrate long-running TV shows, and the first one is about Doctor Who. Come dressed as your favourite Doctor Who characters and just celebrate this show. And then the day before the live transmission, we were like, haha, we tricked you. This is a reveal of the 12th Doctor. And everyone went insane. Like we even scheduled a repeat of MasterChef to hide the fact that it was the 14th Doctor. But whereas with like Jodie Whittaker, they aired a trailer in the middle of like Wimbledon, was it?
Yeah, I remember again, I'm never on live TV, so I don't actually see these announcements when they get live. My Jodie announcement for me was very similar to my Capaldi one. I probably was coming out the cinema. I don't know if I was, but I found out about it through Twitter. That's where I get my information most of the time when it comes to TV show announcements. And so for Jodie, for me, Doctor Who announcements are always lackluster. Like even when I found out Matt Smith was the Doctor, I found out through the TV guide. Like I'd never see the actual official announcement. It's always like someone reporting on the announcement.
But I just wish you would do another like live TV announcement of who the next Doctor is. Build it up a little bit rather than just, oh, here's the new Doctor and cool.
But Scott, that would require the BBC to care about Doctor Who.
Yeah, true. We haven't really marketed the show since like 2018. That's a long time ago.
Since like Jodie's first season, then they quickly gave up on it. Like,
and they wonder why the ratings are kind of lower than what they'd want it to be. Which the ratings aren't too low, but still, it would have been higher if they just paid a little more money in the marketing.
Yeah, like I've talked to people about that, like, don't watch Doctor Who, about Jodie's Doctor. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's still pretty good. And she's a great Doctor, and her 3rd season's about to start. And they're like, what? Her 3rd season? I thought she was on her 1st. Like, there's been like no information about Doctor Who since she was announced, and so people just still think she's really new to the role. When it's like, no, we're in the last season of Jodie. She's about to go. Like,
yeah, and we're about 2 months away from the new series. We've had like a minute-long trailer just showing us faces, and that's about it, really.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how Doctor Who's evolved, because like even the change in presentation and the BBC's attitude towards Doctor Who with Capaldi, I think, is really where it started. Because with Matt Smith, they broke into the US audience, so they promoted the hell out of it over there. They didn't super promote it over here. I really don't remember there being that much Doctor Who news when Matt Smith was the Doctor. But when Capaldi became the Doctor, there was none. Like, there was even less coverage from the BBC.
The BBC did do a whole worldwide kind of. They shipped Peter Capaldi, Stephen Moffat, and Jenna Louise Coleman. Is that her name? Yes.
I didn't. The Louise threw me for a loop, but Jenna Coleman, yeah.
Yeah, in season 7, she's credited as Jenna Louise Coleman. Then she loses the Louise, so I don't know why, but yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, they basically shipped them around the world, like not North Korea, South Korea.
Yeah, they shipped them off to North Korea.
Like Australia, America, like all over the world, basically. They made a huge thing out of it.
Yeah, which, I mean, they don't do right now because of COVID, obviously, but BBC doesn't care about Doctor Who. It's a depressing topic to talk about, but it's an interesting relationship, I think, because the BBC doesn't care about Doctor Who, but Doctor Who also, I don't think's ever going to go away.
Yeah.
Like, it's just always going to be there at this point.
Like, I think the BBC is always going to give Big Finish the license to create more stories set in the universe of Doctor Who. Like, that's never going to go away, I don't think.
And even if the show gets cancelled, in 20 years it'll be back. Like,
yeah.
It's too big and too much of a moneymaker for it to be gone forever.
So anyway, going back to Peter Capaldi, Peter Capaldi didn't want any gimmicks in his costume, like a hat or a scarf. And I think no gimmicks after... I think some of the other Doctors had too many gimmicks, like with Fez, and I don't know. I think other Doctors had a bit too much gimmicks, I think.
Yeah, I get that, and I understand wanting to have your Doctor stand apart. You know, it's like everyone, like, you know, Tennant's got his long coat, Smith's got his bow tie. How do I make my Doctor separate? Is I don't give him anything, you know, as just a plain shirt and a jacket. But speaking on gimmicks, Capaldi's the Doctor with the sonic freaking sunglasses. Ugh. Like, he didn't have a sonic screwdriver. He had sonic sunglasses. The biggest gimmick you could possibly freaking have. And, you know, and like that's something I actually forgot about in his Doctor, because I've said, like, in previous episodes, Capaldi was a Doctor that didn't rely on his screwdriver, and we never really see him with his screwdriver. And of course we don't, because his screwdriver's a pair of sunglasses. Which... I think the only time they really use the sunglasses gimmick well is when he goes blind for like 4 episodes.
Yes, I think that arc where he goes blind is like the most shocking arc in Doctor Who, because it's just so unexpected.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But imagine if he met the Weeping Angels while he was blind.
Oh my, yeah.
That's a missed opportunity, honestly.
That is a missed opportunity right there. That could have been really good.
So instead, Peter Capaldi settled on a dark blue Crombie coat, red lining, a mix of 1960s Edwardian, mix of different periods. He really wanted the outfit to be easily replicated, which is a good sign, because it shows he's thinking about the kids at home just wanting to dress up as their favourite Doctor, and I think that's a great mindset to have in the role.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a great mindset, and all that it does is it flashes me back to 2014, when they did the costume reveal, and everyone online was like, oh, he looks like a magician. It's a bad costume, he looks like a magician.
Yes. But, like, one of my favourite things about Jodie Whittaker is she keeps a spare costume in her house at all times, just in case she has to do a children's appearance for charity or something like that. And I think Doctor Who doesn't do enough to get the children on board as we used to, because I remember back in the day there used to be like a CBBC spin-off called Totally Doctor Who, which was like a magazine kind of show for centered towards children, and Sarah Jane Adventures and Doctor Who Confidential, all these shows that have since gone, and it's a shame.
Yeah. The Doctor Who trading card game, Doctor Who Top Trumps, the Doctor Who magazine, I feel was a bit more kid-centric than it is nowadays. You know, there was so many Doctor Who memorabilia pieces. I have a Doctor Who egg cup holder. I have so many. I remember having like a Cyberman Halloween costume. There were so many Doctor Who things for kids to play with that there just really isn't anymore. And speaking of Jodie doing really good things, I never watched them, but throughout lockdown, she made little videos in her closet as the Doctor as well to keep kids and stuff entertained. And it's like, God, why isn't this the Doctor we see on screen? Why can't we get this Doctor?
I agree, and it's a shame. Just how low energy the BBC have been putting in this show. But anyway, back to Peter Capaldi's first episode. So the first 5 scripts were actually leaked before the show ever aired, because it was leaked by Miami BBC Worldwide office in July, and then episode 1, the entire episode got leaked online. It was unfinished, but it got leaked. Did you ever see any of these leaks back in the day?
I did not. I don't think I was aware of the scripts leaking. I feel like I was definitely aware of the episode leaking, but I didn't watch it because I didn't want to spoil myself from seeing the actual premiere.
Yes, I was 100% aware, and I just did not want to see it because I was thinking, hey, I'm going to see it next month at the cinema. That's a better way to experience the episode for the first time. And yeah.
Yeah,
it's a shame it got leaked though. Like,
yeah, big shame. But you know, stuff happens. Things get leaked all the time. My favorite leak is the entire. Oh my God, what's the film that leaked? X-Men Origins Wolverine. The entire film X-Men Origins Wolverine leaked online with none of the special effects, and it's a really interesting film. But like sometimes like through like how did they make this sort of angle, watching leaks can be interesting, and if you're really desperate for the inside scoop. But I really think my interest in leaks has super died down than what it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, same here. So anyway, this episode was obviously written by Stephen Moffat. We've done a history about him before. We've covered, like, this is our 3rd episode from Stephen Moffat now, which is insane to think about. But
yeah, it's interesting. We've covered, I think, a fair mix of Classic Who and New Who already, mainly because our Classic Who episodes are so goddamn long. But Moffat, I think, has the longest tenure of any showrunner. Of New Who, that is.
Yeah.
Because he was in the reins for like, what, 6-7 years?
Yes, he did 6 series split across, I think, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah, so it's, you know, statistically speaking, if we're covering a New Who episode, it's more than likely going to be a Moffat script.
Yeah. But this episode was directed by Ben Wheatley, who also did the movies High Rise and Free Fire, which I've been meaning to watch for a long time because I hear they're very good. But yeah, he's a big director, honestly.
Yeah, I've never heard of High Rise. Free Fire is a film that was like on my Netflix list forever, and I just have never clicked on it to watch it.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, a big director to get for like for an episode that's going to air at the cinema, and that's basically all we've got. Let's go into the episode.
Before we go into the episode, actually, speaking of its cinema release, I never actually saw this in cinema. I watched it either the day of airing or the day after it aired, because I'm terrible at watching live TV. But so I've never actually, because the same with the 50th anniversary. I saw the 50th anniversary on BBC, never got a chance to see it in cinema. So I've like never had that experience of watching Doctor Who with other Doctor Who fans. What was it like?
I think honestly it made the experience much better than it would have been if I just watched it at home, because you get the experience of just every surprise. You hear people in the audience just gasping, and it makes it so much more energetic and exciting, especially with the anniversary special and with the first introduction of a new Doctor. I think it's a great way to go about it, and I wish we would do the same with Jodie Whittaker, especially since her episodes are more cinematic. But yeah.
Yeah, her episodes would be great to see in cinema. And yeah, I think that's why, because we'll go into it when we dive into the episode in a moment, but we were messaging privately, and I was like, after finishing the episode, I was like, yeah, it's still as I remember it, because I remember watching this episode live, and coming out with the reaction of, it was fine. I'm kind of underwhelmed by the episode as a whole, but then you were telling me that you loved this episode. I was like, oh, okay. And I feel like the actual being in the environment of watching it in a cinema with Doctor Who fans and feeling that energy probably had played a massive part on that.
I think today,
that's probably why they released it in cinema.
Yeah, I think for this podcast is the second time I've seen it, so it's a difference of like 7 years. The first time I saw it, I really, really liked it because of the atmosphere and the energy. But this time, it's just like, in hindsight, it's just kind of flat, honestly. There's nothing to really say, or it's tough to say about it because we're going to do a whole podcast of it. So you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's it's hard to put into words in this podcast that relies entirely on words, just exactly what's missing in the episode. But we'll maybe see if we can discover it as we go on into the episode. The episode begins with people being confused and thinking they tuned into Terra Nova.
or Primeval from ITV, yeah.
Because there's a giant T-Rex on screen, if that wasn't clear. And I think, I don't remember what my thought was at the time, but I think this is some bad CGI.
Honestly, it's not that bad, considering it's 2014 TV budget. I think it looks okay.
Yeah.
Compared to like Primeval, which was on the air like 5 years before, it's a big step up, honestly.
I'll need to rewatch Primeval because I haven't seen that show since I was a kid. And so in my head, it's like perfect CGI because it's through the eyes of a child.
I think the problem with Primeval's CGI is the lighting, whereas here I think the lighting looks pretty realistic. It's
very
not
orange, yeah.
I'm not saying it's the best CGI, but
no, you're saying it's flawless. You're saying that it's cinema worthy. It is Avengers Endgame level CGI. That is what you're saying. Yes.
I remember being a little taken aback by it, watching it in the cinema, because I was like, "Oof, this looks not bad, but it kind of looks a bit iffy." Then I remembered, oh, this is a TV show. It's a TV show budget.
Yeah.
I expected too much from it.
Yeah, but we find out that the T-Rex is in London as it walks past Big Ben, and then we pan down through some buildings to realize it's Victorian London. Oh my golly gosh, what sort of time travel shows this?
I do like the pan down from the sky to the streets. It does look kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun shot. And then we get introduced to 3 of the main characters in this episode, who are 3 recurring characters that I really wish they brought back, and I'll explain why in a moment.
I want 2 of them to come back, not the other one. And I think I wonder if you'll guess which one I don't want back.
I think we're going to disagree. But we get introduced to Lady Vestra, her lady friend whose name I can't remember. Oh my goodness.
Jenny?
Yes.
Jenny.
Sure, let's go with Jenny. And the Sontaran, whose name I also can't remember because I'm bad at remembering names.
Strax, I think.
Yes, Strax. Who I think make such a great trio. What was their first episode, though?
I think Strax at least appears in A Good Man Goes to War. But I think the 3 of them don't appear together until The Snowman, which was Clara's first proper episode.
Yeah. I think they make a great trio together. I think they're really, really, really fun. And I'll explain why I want them back, okay?
Okay.
And this was entirely based off a conversation I had last night. So I was playing Dead by Daylight with a couple friends, and we were talking about Doctor Who. And we were talking about Deep Breath because I was mentioning the podcast because I will plug it whenever there's a chance. And we were saying that we think it was a missed opportunity not to bring back this trio because you could have had so many great moments with Jodie's doctor, specifically with Strax not realizing there's anything different with her. You know? And you could have Lady Vestra being like, "Oh, doctor, you're so sexy now," and then Strax just is like, "What's the difference? You still look the exact same as you did." Like,
so you want them back only for like 2 lines?
Yeah, you could do more with them, but like even just like a wee one episode where they're back, like they did with Captain Jack, it could be great. Just a great wee moment with them.
Why don't you become a writer for the BBC? Like write a BBC book of these characters meeting Jodie's doctor. There, you could go do it now.
That'll be my big Finnish submission in the contest next year, definitely.
Except I don't think you can write for the 13th Doctor yet, so you're kind of screwed there, mate.
Grr.
My issue is, at the beginning of the episode, I was like, oh, these characters are fun. I wish we'd come back. But then they kind of just settle back into the same notes they were at before. Like, the Sontaran is like, oh, I can't tell gender. And he basically says the same joke throughout the entire episode. And that's...
Yeah. But it's a funny joke.
Maybe the first couple of times, but this is their like fourth episode and he's still on the same shtick.
Yeah, but I think there's potential to develop stuff with them, you know, because you've got this lizard lady who's in the Victorian times, who's also a lesbian. So there's like, and somehow doesn't face any prejudice. And there's this Victorian lady who will die, who's in love with an essentially immortal lizard. And then you've got this Sontaran nurse who's no longer with the Sontaran fleet being domesticated by this couple. Like, you could do a lot of like identity crisis, facing your own mortality storylines with these characters and still kind of present it in the fun but slightly mature way that Doctor Who does. I think there's a lot, and I would like to see them come back.
You will be happy to know they have a Big Finish series, so go and check that out. I don't care.
But we see Jenny hold out like this weird steampunk style gauntlet towards the dinosaur. As she's like scanning it, I guess we never see it again, and we find out that the dinosaur is choking on something, and I wonder how it got here, and we're like, oh, I know how it got here, time travel, and then it spits out the TARDIS, and you're like, that kind of makes sense.
So the gauntlet she's holding up is like her own sonic screwdriver. It was designed by a child it was a Big Finish competition. In fact, all of the sonic devices in this episode, aside from the sonic screwdriver also, was designed by children, which is a cool thing. Again, Blue Peter competitions should come back.
Yeah, they should. It's a pretty good looking gauntlet as well. Well, I find, and then the dinosaur spits out the TARDIS. It comes crashing down onto the sand. A policeman officer, another policeman officer in an episode of Doctor Who, who'd have thunk it, is like, it laid an egg. And then it's the beginning of the Stephen Moffat doing Joss Whedon quips. As Lady Vestra goes, oh, it just spit out a blue box from its mouth. Your grasp on biology troubles me deeply. And it's like, that's a great line for Tumblr. That's one that'll be posted everywhere. And like, speaking of the quippy joke style in this episode, I think like maybe 3 or 4 jokes that are in that quippy style land, and for me personally, Strax says every single one of them.
Yeah, sure. I think Strax did get the biggest laugh out of me in this whole episode. But yeah, overall, the quips from the side characters, not the Doctor, were certainly, I don't know, they just feel forced. I don't know.
It does feel a bit forced, doesn't it? It's weird.
I don't know, yeah. I think it's just Stephen Moffat trying to be too clever, and I think that's a big problem with a lot of his era. It's just like too busy trying to wink at the audience.
Yeah, I agree. Moffat does have his faults, definitely, but as I said last week, all hail. We see the trio. Do they have a name that we can call them rather than just the trio? Do they have like an official BBC title?
They do have a name, I think.
The lizard, the lady, and the spud. The
Paternoster gang.
I'm not calling them that. The trio. The trio make their way down towards the TARDIS. They're like, of course it's the Doctor. It's a blue box that came out of a dinosaur's mouth. Who the hell else is it going to be? As Strax is then informed to march on up and go see if the Doctor's there, which he does promptly. He bangs on the door.
I don't know if this is just me, or throughout the entire scene, it's just obvious this is a set, and it feels totally obvious. What about you? It's overly distracting for me.
Yeah, it does look a bit too set-like. I don't think it was any worse than any of the other sets in the episode, to be honest. But this era of Doctor Who has that problem of the sets kind of just look like sets. You never super feel... Unless you're on, like, a spaceship, and even then you're like, oh, this is a set of a spaceship.
And it was
like, you never feel immersed.
It was a bigger issue when I was watching it in the cinema, because watching it on a bigger screen is just like... all this is... I can see some of the flaws of Doctor Who at this budget.
Yeah. But, that's part of its charm, isn't it? But Strax bangs on the door, tells the Doctor to surrender for the glory of the Sontaran Empire. Everybody gives a big yuck, yuck, yuck. As then we get our first proper introduction to Capaldi's Doctor, besides just looking at his furious eyebrows, as he opens the TARDIS door, plumes of smoke come flying out, and he goes, shush, and then shuts the door again.
I think if I got the biggest laugh at the cinema I was at, everyone just lost it.
It's a pretty good introduction to his Doctor, I think. I think the only thing that stands out to me, rewatching this first episode of Capaldi's Doctor, as like from a performance and from a character standpoint, this version of Capaldi's Doctor is nothing like the version of Capaldi's Doctor he turns into.
Oh yeah, that's definitely intentional. This is the Doctor post-regeneration. He's not even sure who he is yet, the character. So it makes sense for it not to be the Doctor yet. Yeah,
and we were speaking... I think... I don't remember which Doctor it was at this point, but it was definitely a post-regeneration Doctor where they're using some of the same mannerisms as the Doctor before them. Capaldi, in this first scene, is channeling a lot of Matt Smith-style energy to his performance, because he's not even aware that he's really regenerated. His mind is gone blank again, as we see happens in the movie. It was the movie where I was talking about the performance, as he was kind of matching the performance there. Yeah. And I feel Capaldi's doing the same, trying to match Matt Smith's energy, but bring his own kind of crazed Scotsman style to it. And I think it blends really, really well. Like, Capaldi in this scene is the standout. He's so good when he's like, I don't know what's going on. Who are you? And then there's the funny joke where Clara's standing next to Strax, and he's like, you look the same. Like...
I've rather Strax kind of line confusing both Clara and Strax.
What I liked is he said that they're similar heights. Like, he doesn't, like, that's how the Doctor differentiates people, is by their height, not by their face or their names. It's who's tall and who's short. Like,
and I love how he confuses Strax with one of the 7 dwarves as well.
Yes, he just starts listing them off. And even when he's describing Lady Vestra and Jenny, he's like, the green one and the not green one, or was it the other way around? Like, I love Capaldi's Doctor describing people, because he has no patience or care for any of it. Like, another thing that's really weird about the scene that I picked up on watching it again, every now and then they'll cut to a wide shot and everything's slowed down briefly. Like, they do it like 3 or 4 different times in this one scene alone. The first example is where he's like, oh, you remember, and then it cuts to a wide shot as it slows down as he points over to the TARDIS, and I just think it's really weird, because it's not even like proper slow-mo. It's like slowed down like maybe 10%, so it just comes across really strange.
Maybe it's for added disorientation for the audience, I think. That could be just to get kind of in the mindset of the Doctor where something's not quite right.
Yeah, that's a fair gamble. I'm not against that being the reason for it. But speaking of Capaldi being on fire in this scene, as he's describing Clara, he basically breaks the fourth wall, as he's like, the not me one, the asking questions one. Like, he's like, yes, that is the reason you have companions. It's so for exposition, isn't it?
The biggest fourth wall break was when Missy was pretending to be the Doctor at one point, and she points to Matt Lucas. She's like, comic relief, and she points to Bill and exposition. And I think that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, it is. Another thing that I enjoyed that shows up again later on in the episode is when Capaldi looks into the lens of the camera, which he does, which is something that he does so often as his doctor.
Yeah, he really does.
He breaks the fourth wall. That's really his doctor's thing, is I'm in a TV show. It's so weird.
And I think it's definitely a sign that Stephen Moffat is moving towards more of a meta kind of writing style.
Yeah, it's and I get it. You know, he's been on the show at this point for like what, 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit less than that.
Yeah,
3?
if we include the episodes he's actually written in the Russell T. Davis era, this is his 9th year of working on Doctor Who stories. So
yeah, by that point, you're like, what else can I do that's new? And the most new thing you can do is start playing with the format and the structure. Like, and then the Doctor starts talking to the giant dinosaur for a wee minute because, and this is a gimmick in Doctor Who that I don't know if I really enjoy, that they've done several times, is the Doctor being able to speak every language. Like he speaks baby, he speaks dinosaur, and it's
he speaks horse at one point.
Yeah, and
it does get a bit too much, I think. Yeah,
I think it gets a bit too much, and 2, I guess the TARDIS translating everything's for the benefit of other people.
Yeah.
If the Doctor can understand every language, it's like although that just reminded me of one thing, and that's a theory of Doctor Who of mine, which it may not be a theory, it may be confirmed in fact, but and you know, the Doctor being able to speak every language kind of undermines this, but I don't think the Doctor speaks English at all. I don't think he knows how to speak English. I think he's speaking in Gallifreyan, and the TARDIS translates it for the companions and for us, the audience. That's my own headcanon.
I don't know about that, because all the Time Lords seem to speak English, even when there's no TARDIS present.
Yeah, but that's for us. You know, and if they're on Gallifrey, there's TARDISes everywhere, or is it TARDISi?
True, but you're saying the TARDIS translates it for us and not anything else.
Yeah, okay. Just like Capaldi looks down the camera, they're aware.
I disagree, but sure. You're stupid, but yeah, sure, go ahead.
Wow, you'll eat those words when I'm in charge and make it canon. I just think it would be really interesting, right? Say that the translator in the TARDIS breaks, and then suddenly you have a companion working with a Doctor who doesn't speak English.
Yeah, that would be incredible, I think. But yeah,
just sold you on my idea immediately.
I was thinking, yeah, okay, sure.
We then the Doctor starts talking to Clara. He doesn't remember her name and stuff like that, and then he asks her, he's like, have you regenerated? And then he's like, you used to be handles, a wee robot head. Oh no. Which I thought was a great callback, and 2, a really fun confusion where he's having this like, oh my god, the robot head grew into a lady, what's happened? Like,
and the robot head had put on weight as well.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed Handles for the brief episode or 2 that he was in. I thought he was
I think it was just one episode. But then he did the same thing with Rusty, the good Dalek, in the 12th Doctor's last episode. He did the exact same gimmick. Do you remember Rusty the Dalek?
Vaguely. We'll need to cover the finale of Capaldi again, because I don't super remember it, but it's a fun gimmick to have, turning a Doctor's enemy into a handy robot tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So good, you had to do it 2 times.
So the Doctor here kind of flirts with the dinosaur, and it reminds me too much of Donkey from Shrek. like any minute now we're going to have babies together, and Peter Capaldi's head is going to be on the little dinosaurs.
Yeah, he does. He is very flirty with the dinosaur through the whole time. He starts calling her like his lady friend, his big lady, his love. And it's like, this is This is a dinosaur you're talking to. And then we find out that the dinosaur's getting a headache from the like big shield thing that they put around. It really doesn't come up again. They've like trapped the Dalek in the Thames with this big, with these like orb things that they gave the policeman officer. It was really like a one fucking sentence thing that they said, and it's giving her a headache.
I think the dinosaur overall was just an afterthought in this episode, honestly.
Yeah, it's a fun way to start the episode, but plays into so little of the plot.
You can tell it's just Stephen Moffat being like, oh, I know how to open up this season, how to get people excited. I mean, he
Start
really
with
does
the
nothing with
dinosaur.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of his ideas. Like, oh, I have a good idea for a villain, something you'll forget when you look away, and then he kind of does nothing with them in the end, like the end of the series.
But
with
Scott, that's
silence
because that's because Scott, he looked away from his script, and then he forgot what the silence were. So,
and then with the Weeping Angels as well, he just kind of had a good idea for a concept, then he kind of ruins it near the end.
I think Moffat has the issue that I think a lot of writers end up having when they try to over-explain something.
Yeah.
So like the silence, I think in their first series are really, really good, and they're a terrifying villain. And then by like the second or third time you see them outside of that storyline, where it's like, we're the Church of the Silence, and we were good guys, and we were in charge of this, and these are the priests here, and you've got to wear this eye patch now. And it's like, this is dumb. What is going on here? This is very strange. You've really ruined these aliens for me. And then again with the Weeping Angels, every time they come back, they get more and more complicated, and it becomes less and less scary. Like he keeps adding rules and rules, and sure, it fleshes out the world a bit more, but I think you lose something. You lose that mystique that it had when it was there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
The Doctor confuses Strax with Clara, as we said, and then he's like, "Why are you looking at me like that? Why are you getting all wobbly? Oh my God, stop wobbling!" And Clara's like, "We're not wobbling, you fucking old creep." And then the Doctor says, "It's okay, everybody, take 5," and then he falls over on his face and dies, weirdly. It was a strange way to start and end the episode.
It very much reminds me of the opening of the Christmas Invasion, where David Tennant steps out of the TARDIS, says, "Hello, Jackie. Hello, Mickey." And then Jackie's like, "Who the hell is this? Where's the Doctor?" And then the Doctor passes out. It's very much the same.
It is. It's a very almost identical, but with the giant dinosaur. And this is where Clara goes, "This is the Doctor. This is who he is now." And then the theme song kicks in as we're finished the cold open. Lady Distra? No, that's Lady Distra, the big lady from Resident Evil. Oh my God, what's Lizard Lady's name? I'm so bad with
Vastra.
names. Lady Vastra. Thanks, Bob. She she says the wonderfully cliched but still kind of gives me chills line where she goes, "Here we go again," and then it's dun, 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 dun.
It harkens back to the Brigadier when John Pertwee's regenerating into Tom Baker. As he's watching the regeneration, he's like, "Here we go again," and it's such a great line just to talk about regeneration. I love it.
It is. It's a really good way, especially a good way to kick into the theme song. Speaking of theme songs, Scott,
Yes.
rather controversial one we have this week. What are your opinions of it?
So obviously it's kind of like a fan made intro by a guy named Billy Hanshaw. He made the intro, uploaded it to YouTube. He's a professional, and then he got hired onto the show. I'm not sure what to think about it, honestly. I think it looks okay, but it doesn't really excite me or anything. It's rather, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's very grey, as is a lot of Capaldi's stuff. The good things it has about it, I like the clockwork stuff. I like the spinning, the fill-in for the vortex is like this spinning like Roman numerals, which I think looks really cool. I think they finally nailed down how to make the Doctor's face appear, or as we just see Capaldi's angry eyebrows for a brief second. It's way less terrifying than the Doctor's face just coming at you. I think that looks good. the theme song itself, I think's maybe a key or two too high. It's really whiny.
Yeah, and I think it's out. I think the special effects don't hold up very well, honestly. If we compare, I don't know, the 1996 intro to this one, I think people would point to the 90s one and say this is the newer one. The TARDIS looks cheap. There's no lighting on it. I don't know.
Yeah, a weird thing that I remember about this intro as well, and it never, at least to my knowledge, it never actually led to anything. One of the special effects supervisors, or the guy that made it himself, said, count the planets in the intro before the TARDIS shows up. There's like 9 or something planets, because apparently it was going to play into a storyline that they were building to, but it just didn't. Yeah. So there's a fun bit of thing that you can try and look up and find. I remember watching a YouTube video. I think it was Emergency Awesome. I used to watch him a lot. I don't watch him so much anymore. Where he was talking about this, and he was like, yeah, they said count the planets, and that's going to play into a bigger thing later this season. And it just straight up doesn't. So that's interesting.
I mean, the logo itself has changed since the Matt Smith era, because it used to have like a little TARDIS in the middle with the initials DW. Now that's gone.
I think this logo's really boring.
It is, yes.
Like, it's fine. It's a fine logo. It says Doctor Who. You know what you're getting, but it has no character to it at all.
And the BBC logo underneath it kind of looks weirdly out of place.
Yeah. Where's the giant orange weird spaceship? Bring it back. What I need is that orange spaceship back with the Doctor's signature in it. You know, you know the intro I'm talking about?
Yes, I know what you're talking about, but that's the worst
I think that would be a great combo. I might try and make that in Photoshop and see if I can. But we then open up from the intro to nighttime in Victorian London land, as I believe was its official name before they shortened it to just London. And we see... Sorry, that was a dumb joke. And we see...
Hence me not laughing.
we see the dinosaur way off in the distance, where it will remain forever in this episode, as we go indoors to see Clara and Jenny being perverts and listening through the doorway to the Doctor and Lizard Lady talking.
But also their ears are pressed up against the doorway, like the Doctor isn't yelling really loudly. The Doctor is shouting. It's easy to hear him.
Yeah, but I guess, for like a staging thing, like it's more cinematic for it to be like that. But then the Doctor opens up the door all angry, and he's like, who invented this room? There's only one bed in it. What is it? Blah. And, we get the concept of a bedroom explained to us in a pretty fun conversation, I think. But also, does it super? I guess it needs to be there because the Doctor's learning things. It's again another haha so quirky Moffat style joke thing. But I didn't hate the scene.
Yeah, it is weird. The Doctor's like, oh, I don't know what a bedroom is. Like, usually when he regenerates, he knows, I must lie down. I need to lie down to rest. But here he's just like, what are things? But this is the first regeneration in a new cycle, so I guess that's why he's extra confused.
Yeah. Not that matters anymore, which I hate.
Oh, true.
God damn it. But yeah, this is, and the canon up to this point, technically the first Doctor again.
Yeah.
Like he's been put into his first regeneration. So we've never seen a Time Lord live this long. We've never seen a Time Lord go past 13 regenerations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Capaldi's the 14th Doctor? Because Tennant regenerated... Because Tennant regenerated twice.
Yes. I mean, John Hurt.
And John Hurt, yeah. God damn, it's so confusing.
It is.
Yeah, that's my favorite bit of weird Doctor Who, when Doctor Who's canon's trying to be too smart, is David Tennant regenerated into David Tennant.
Yeah.
And somehow didn't suffer any memory loss or anything from it. Yeah, and also he's never done it again, but whatever. Yeah, but back to the main point I was making. I loved the idea of this being the first Doctor in a new series of 13 regenerations. You
Yeah.
know, sure, we joked last week about the Time Lords just being able to grant as many regenerations as they want as kind of a get out of jail free card, but I loved the idea of being able to extend the show by that much and still give the show a sense of the Doctor can die and there is a limit to what the Doctor can do. Whereas with the Timeless Child stuff, you know, again, maybe it'll get explained in this new season. The Doctor is now an immortal being who's the most important person to ever exist in the entire universe. So
Yeah, the Doctor has always been a bit space Jesus, but he's extra. She's extra space Jesus now, isn't she?
yeah, yeah. And also, if the Time Lords knew the Doctor was the Timeless Child, why did they grant... I've headcanoned it. The Time Lords didn't grant the Doctor extra regenerations because it's not something they can do. They don't have that power. They don't have the technology, which is why no other Time Lord's ever done it. What they did was they pretended to grant the Doctor new regenerations so that he would think he's got 13 new regenerations when actually they knew he was the Timeless Child and had infinite amount of regenerations. I fixed it.
If you say so.
It checks out. That works. Like, that is a way you could explain it.
Sounds like retconning with extra steps.
The one line that I really liked in this scene is when Capaldi's like, you know, what's the point of a bedroom, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and don't look in the mirror. It's furious. Like,
There is a lot of humor based on the Doctor looking at himself in this episode, isn't there?
yeah. And it does what I love in Doctor Who, which is also, I think, you know, it's done with like a joking spirit, but it's relatively almost mean-hearted. When the writers point out one flaw in the person that's being the Doctor, you know, with Matt Smith it was his chin. With what was the flaw with Tennant? Did he have a flaw, or were they just like, God, you're so sexy?
I think. Yeah, I can't remember anything with Tennant, but obviously
Yeah,
with
but
Eccleston, it was the
Eccleston
ears.
is ears. Yeah, with Eccleston it was the ears, and Capaldi they're like, your eyebrows are mental. Like, which for Tennant, I remember he regenerated and he was like, new tongue. So I guess Tennant's tongue's a bit weird.
And how would someone know that? I wonder how he got a role now. I wonder. I'm just thinking now. Dirty, no?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's always fun when the Doctor points out their own physical flaws as almost a personality trait, but a thing they're trying to get used to. I think it's almost endearing, you know, because it's like, oh, the body they regenerate into isn't perfect. You know, they're still got this body that has its flaws and stuff, but they learn to accept. It's a pretty decent, you could twist it at least into being a pretty decent body positive sort of thing.
I would like to see the Doctor regenerate into someone who's like overweight or disabled or anything different when like a skinny person. It'd be interesting to just watch how they react to things.
Yeah, you know, it was like the idea that we had, or that I hadn't told to you, and you went, okay, where the Doctor regenerates into someone who's ridiculously young, like, say, teenager to mid-20s, and it's like, oh, cool, they're now this, like, 1,000-year-old who looks like a kid and no one will take seriously. And then you could do the fun, like, everyone thinks the companion's the Doctor, kind of what they did with Jodie, but actually do something good with it, I guess.
And we're dealing with puberty every week.
Yeah.
Every week we're just socially awkwardly asking that girl out.
Yeah, you know, instead of the Doctor going grey, there's hairs just start growing, and they're like, oh my, what is going on? And then we get confirmation that, of course, the Doctor is definitely Scottish now, as he makes fun of all the English accents in the room, which I appreciated personally. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah.
And Lizard Lady, because I'm terrible with names, comes up. I tell you, it's remarkable. I'm very glad the Doctor is just called Doctor. That's so easy for me to remember. Just names just do not stick with me. I don't know why. But Lizard Lady, as she's known, starts talking in a pretty decent Scottish accent, actually. I was pretty impressed with her accent.
Do you want to know why it's a pretty decent Scottish accent?
Is she a Scottish lady?
Yes. It would be shocking if you were like, oh, that's a bad accent.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Scots people can do a decent English accent. English people, not so much, can do a good Scottish.
I think Clara tries to do one later on this year.
I don't remember. If she did, I definitely missed it. If
I
it was that
think
bad.
I think somebody tried to do a Scottish accent later on, and it's not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah. I think the reason that I like this era of Doctor Who quite a bit, especially when Missy comes in, is it makes the show so Scottish. Like, it becomes, it's no longer like this English show shot in Wales, it's now the Scottish show shot in Wales.
Yeah. And you can tell Stephen Moffat really wanted someone Scottish because he's also Scottish.
Yeah, it's great. And it's just a shame we never got David Tennant with his Scottish accent. We could have had 2 Scottish doctors. Instead, we get one and one pretending to be English.
We do have Sylvester McCoy. He's Scottish and he keeps his accent. There's nothing commented on his accent ever, but he's still Scottish.
Yeah, I think it's because his accent's not as strong as
Yeah.
Capaldi's. Capaldi's
Well, his
got a very
accent-
thick accent.
His accent is very strong, I would say. Stronger than Tennant's native accent.
It's definitely stronger than our accent. But we then get a sex joke, one of many sex jokes that happen in this episode, weirdly. As Lizard Lady says that she wants to mind link with the Doctor, and the Doctor's like, you want a mind link with me? You want a tango with me? It'll be like dropping a piano on your head. I'm a sex god. I mean, I'm really good at psychic links. My brain's so big. And then they connect, and the Doctor passes out instantly.
With a very cartoony sound effect.
Yeah, it's like a dong. Like
It's gone back to the TV movie. Like a dramatic scene got undercut by a cartoon sound effect.
Yeah, I think thankfully the scene wasn't super dramatic.
Yeah.
Because it was a sex joke, so it didn't super undermine it, but it still feels out of place.
But Stephen Moffat certainly does like his sex jokes. Like one of his first episodes was called "The Doctor Dances," and it was an entire metaphor about how the Doctor can still have sex.
Yeah. Then they tuck up Capaldi in bed very neatly, almost uncomfortably looking, where I'm like, he's not going to be able to like wriggle about. But and then Lizard Lady, oh, give me her name. I feel bad calling her Lizard Lady.
That's racist of you. Her name is Vastra. Write it down.
Vastra, Lizard Lady. Vastra is like, go get my veil, Jenny. And Jenny's like, oh my goodness, why would I ever get your veil? To which Lizard Lady's like, oh, we've got strangers in the house already. Essentially talking about Clara. It was a metaphor I never really understood. And still, it's about Clara accepting who the Doctor is and treating him right and stuff.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's kind of like a mental health kind of message at some points. It's like Clara has to help the Doctor with who he is now, and it's kind of like talking about a friend who has depression, and you need to still see your friend as your friend and help him through his struggles. But it kind of doesn't make sense because Clara knows the Doctor has regenerated in the past, and now she's like, but he's old and stuff. This whole plot is just ridiculous, I think.
Clara's really not on board with him being old.
Yeah.
The whole veil metaphor, yeah, I think gets a bit muddled in what it's trying to actually say. But there's a great moment here. I say great moment. There's a moment where Clara's looking down at Capaldi's body, and it's our first tease of Capaldi's face, where she's like, where did he get that face? And it's not something they'll answer for about a season and a half. And even then, it's super underwhelming when they do answer it.
Yeah, they really just kind of dropped the ball, really.
They drop it for like a season, and then halfway through the second season, they're like, oh my god, I figured it out. And then it just comes, it comes in the middle of nowhere, halfway through an episode, where he catches his reflection in a puddle, or in like a bowl of water, and he's like, oh my god, I know where I got this face. And it's like, whoa, what?
I don't like how he just picked the face up. I think it would be better if he just ignored what he was in an episode before.
Yeah, I think it would be better if they ignored it, or two, they kind of make teases to it, but they never say outright so that people can theorize and come up with their own reasons why the Doctor would choose this face. And then, people could come to the conclusion that he chose that face to be a good person because this was the one person that he saved in the fires of Pompeii.
Dude, I think that's what people were considering, like, in the year and a half it took them to answer this question. Like, people were like, oh, he chose this face because blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
everyone was on board with this theory. I mean, Stephen Moffat was like, oh, this is why he chose his face. I mean, the audience were like, yeah, we kind of figured that out, dude.
And then there's another exchange that's pretty decent with Clara and Jenny where Clara's like, what if Vestra changed into someone that you didn't like and, all of a sudden, but she was still the same person? And Jenny's like, well, I don't like her. I'd love her. And she's a lizard. I'll pretty much deal with anything. Which I think is a pretty decent message, It's like, if you care about someone that much, you just put up with it, Like,
yeah.
You understand who this person is. Them changing isn't going to really change your feelings. Also, right, some praise I will give to Clara, to Jenna Coleman here, because I personally, not a big fan of Clara as a companion. I think she's definitely overwritten and stays too long. My little brother, it's his favorite companion. He loves Clara. I think Jenna Coleman brings it every time. I think she's on fire in this episode. Like, I think her performance is incredible. She's got the, like, concerned, confused, sad, all these emotions running through her at once on her face, which benefits, I think, because her eyes are ginormous,
yes.
So she can be really emotive with them.
I was just going to say the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's really, really strong in this episode. Just a wee thing here that I never picked up on, and only picking up on now because of the subtitles. As Jenny leaves the room and Clara tucks Capaldi in bed, the dinosaur moans. It goes, oh. But the subtitles list it as moaning mournfully. And to me, that's like Clara's mourning the loss of Matt Smith. She's like, this isn't the guy that I know. And so she's like mourning almost the death of the Doctor that she knew in that moment.
Yeah. And again, it's just the audience. She's just a surrogate for the audience, really, isn't she?
100%. I mean, that's what the companions usually are, but this time it's very much on the nose. She's the audience. She's you.
I do wonder how it would have been handled if Rose in the Christmas Invasion had to deal with an older Doctor. Like, I wonder if she would have been written in the same way, or I don't know.
I think definitely she would have. Because she was very much in love with the Doctor. The only thing that I think would make it weird, and why I'm glad they chose a young Doctor with Rose in the Christmas Invasion, because the Doctor is also very much in love with Rose, and if he was to regenerate into like a 60-year-old man to this 19-year-old teenager, I'd be like, that's a bit weird. What are you doing?
Yeah, true.
And then there's a pretty nice scene where the Doctor in his sleep starts translating what the dinosaur is saying, and it's basically just repeating that I am alone, I am alone, I'm in a world I don't recognize, and it's, one, saying what the dinosaur is saying, and two, mirroring the Doctor's own feelings, where he's, confused and lost and feels isolated. And it's a pretty nice, soft scene that then gets completely undercut by Strax coming in and making another sex joke.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I started getting kind of emotional and on board with this Doctor, just feeling empathy towards the dinosaur and feeling a connection. And then it's just Strax coming in yelling and just like, ugh.
Yeah, he's like, can I take your coat? And she's like, I'm not wearing a coat, I'm wearing clothes. And he's like, can I take your clothes? And it's like, ha ha ha.
I really wish we would give Strax something else to do. Like,
yeah, I like Strax as a character. I find him charming, but I definitely think that wasn't the right scene to put him in.
Yes.
We then cut to some Victorian citizens, and the man is a man that I recognize so much, but I don't know his name. He's in like every BBC crime thriller.
Haven't got a clue.
Let's see if I can find the cast. Boom, IMDb. Tony Way. Interesting thing here on the cast list. That Victorian man who's played by Tony Way. Do you know what his character name is?
No clue.
Alf.
As in the alien who eats cats.
Yeah, the alien life form, Alf. Tony Way, let's see, filmography. You might know Tony Way from such films as The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Edge of Tomorrow, and then so many TV shows. Apparently he was in Jekyll and Hyde in 2015.
Oh.
He's inside number 9. I recognize him from a bunch of stuff. If you look up Tony Way, you'll probably recognize him as well. He's in most British shows.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I love how Alf thinks the dinosaur is due to the government doing something, which is very sadly relevant for today, I think, in terms of COVID.
Right, I was about to say, if the government put a dinosaur in London that I don't know about. It's interesting to think that watching this, we were all blissfully unaware that in 7 years' time we'd be in a pandemic. But hey, and then we get a reveal of the actual villain of this episode, and I think the reveal gets undermined by one movement. Because Alf says goodbye to his wife, and then street guy comes and lights the street light, as was the style at the time, and we reveal that there's a figure standing underneath the street light, a man. And I think if you cut there immediately to the close-up of Alf, it will then make the reveal that he's a robot terrifying. But instead, what they do is we see the robot man turn his head, so we're like, oh, he's a robot. And we don't get to feel that like fear that we would have got, because he has this conversation where he's like, oh yeah, like I've got great eyes and stuff, and we can see that there's something wrong with this guy that he's talking to. You know, he's creaking, there's like clockwork stuff going, and he's not talking like a proper human. And I think that reveal would have been way better than what we actually get.
Oh yeah, that, like, you could have just saved it by just cutting 2 seconds of that scene. It's all you had to do, and it's. Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of undermined there. But this plot kind of reminds me of Invader Zim. Have you ever seen Invader Zim?
The only thing of Invader Zim I've seen is that Netflix movie they made. Yeah. And I realized that I am too old to enjoy Invader Zim.
But dude, you should watch Invader Zim. It's fantastic. So
it has too much energy for me to deal with.
so there's an episode where he's at school, and there's going to be like health checkups, and in order to appear more human, he starts harvesting organs like eyes and kidneys and hearts. He just steals organs from kids, and this reminds me of this Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, and then he maybe kills a kid. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just convinces the kid to commit suicide, which is somehow better.
But dude, you should watch Invader Zim. It's really good. It's really dark.
I won't.
It's really dark. It's good. You'd love it.
The movie didn't grab me at all. I found the movie really boring.
Yeah, but watch the show, dude.
But that might be more boring.
Like there's an episode where Invader Zim rips out a child's eyes. This is a kid's cartoon.
You're a kid's cartoon.
Sometimes.
We then go back to Vestra.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. We then is that her name?
Vastra.
Vastra. We then go back to Lizard Lady as she's talking with Clara, and we find out, or I guess we don't find out, how the Doctor ended up in the dinosaur's mouth, because we joined the story right at the end where Clara's like, and then we got swallowed by a big dinosaur. have Big Finish done an episode yet where we find out what happened after Matt Smith regenerated, how they ended up in prehistoric times and inside a dinosaur's mouth?
I don't know of it, but I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Oh, I doubt it, because they've not done any Capaldi stuff yet, have they?
They have.
Have they?
Well, they don't cast Capaldi, but they cast a sound-alike. That's what we learned a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Which I saw people spinning. I mean, we'll probably talk about this on the news next week. Is it next week or is it the week after?
Next week, yes.
Yeah. Where because Capaldi said some stuff about Doctor Who recently, where he was like, being on a big budget movie made him like think about how dinky Doctor Who was and appreciating that almost. Mm-hmm. Where he meant it more as a compliment, I think, where he was talking about the B budget. He said it was like B movie stuff, Doctor Who, and you know how much he enjoyed that style, but comparing it to a big blockbuster thing. And then I saw so many headlines of Peter Capaldi recast for his comments that he made. I'm like, yeah, I really doubt that was the reasons.
And also, those audio dramas were recorded in May, and he made those comments like a few weeks ago. So
yeah, and also, you know, he's probably not coming back anytime soon because he's busy making movies at the moment.
And also, he had been recast several years before. It's what Big Finish do. They recast a lot of doctors. Like, really.
Yeah, it was just headlines that made me go, shut up, please shut up. Like,
they actually used the words, Peter Capaldi got cancelled.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ. But speaking of not depressing stuff, we go into the scene where Vastra...
Yeah.
Yes, Vastra and Clara are talking, and they're talking about the veil, and Clara's like, you know, the doctor's gone. Jenny's like, he's not gone, he's upstairs. And we get it explained to us, you know, because we could be new viewers, what regeneration is and why the doctor's acting so weird, which is something they do every 3 seasons, essentially. You know, it's par for the course.
And again, Clara went through the doctor's timeline and saved him 1 billion times. She should know about regeneration. She shouldn't be this sad and mournful about the Doctor.
Yeah, but right, she went through the Doctor's timeline to previous older versions of the Doctor. She didn't go to any new versions of the Doctor because we never see her again. So she only went backwards from the 13th Doctor downwards. Which, if you're going chronologically, you're watching the Doctor get younger with each regeneration, essentially. If you ignore the War Doctor. The War Doctor kind of throws a spanner in the works. Although he regenerated into the War Doctor as a younger man, and then he just aged throughout the war. So, the Doctor just regenerated from an old man to a young guy. And so she's like, cool, he's going to stay young forever. And then he regenerates into this old man.
Yeah. It's still ridiculous, honestly.
It is ridiculous. But at this point, they don't care about Clara jumping into the Doctor's timeline because that story's done. Yeah. They're moving on to a different story with the Danny Pink stuff, which is horrendous.
I'm glad he's not in this episode.
Yeah, but this is the scene that we were talking about where Clara becomes the audience, where she's saying that he doesn't look like he's a new Doctor, he looks like an old man, and Vastra is like, you thought he was young? He's thousands of years old at this point. What are you on about? Like...
And then she's like, the doctor chose to look young to be accepted, which is a bit... I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it makes sense if you look at it in the fourth wall sort of meta style that this scene is, in that they cast a young, thrilling star to be the Doctor so that people would watch the show, so that audiences would get on board.
Sure, but in the context of a show, it's just dumb.
But if you think of it like that, that means that now they're casting an old man because they don't care if anybody watches the show. They're going to do their own thing, and screw it, we're going to be cancelled soon anyway. Then we go to the Doctor as he does a big sniff, and then he sniffs some more, and then he sniffs himself awake. And this whole scene is building up to, I think, was what was supposed to be a really shocking twist that you don't see coming in the narrative. But to me, when I first watched it and when I watched it again, made me go, ugh. Where the Doctor's like following this trail, and he this is where he escapes out the house, isn't it? Yeah. Where he escapes at the house, he gets up onto the roof and he's talking to the dinosaur, and he starts to give a pretty decent speech. Where I'm like, okay, cool, the Doctor's giving a good speech here. Where he's like, I will save you, you big beautiful lady, I will look after you, whatever. And then the dinosaur explodes into a wall of fire and dies, which I think sets the tone for this season of trying to be edgy.
Yeah, definitely. And it's total writing of a Doctor where he starts immediately mistrusting humans because he thinks humans are behind the dinosaur dying. And that's a decent angle. Like, the first thing the Doctor sees is what defines his character, but it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, you can say that with most Doctor Who storylines.
True.
And then there's a really good, I actually really like this explanation Vastra gives about the Doctor being an old man now, where she's talking about how the Doctor was a young guy to, fit in with people, but he chose to be an old man because he trusted Clara that he could reveal what he actually was like on the inside. And then Clara rejects him almost immediately, which I think maybe shapes the Doctor a bit more, but I like the idea, because with Tennant and Matt Smith, both of them had this underlying simmering anger,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Capaldi's Doctor, that is his front, that's his person. So, talking about lifting veils, is the Doctor got rid of the fun persona he had on the outside and just revealed his boiling rage that was below with Capaldi's Doctor, in the hopes perhaps that Clara would fix him and help him become a better person, which is the whole story of Am I a Good Man, where that comes from.
Yeah, and this is also soon after he discovers the War Doctor, so he's still kind of recovering from that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I might be about to talk myself into liking the Am I a Good Man storyline. But I think that was the angle they were trying to get at it, and it's a pretty compelling angle. I think. I don't think it was executed very well.
Totally, and also I kind of like how it makes the regeneration feel like a vulnerable process, because the Doctor is essentially changing himself, and he's going to be kind of like not able to know what's going on for a little while, so he needs to have someone to take care of him, and he chooses Clara to be there for him, I should say.
Yeah, very, very, very good. I enjoy it when the show dissects the psychology of the Doctor in that way, and and trying to figure out how he works or how she works, how they work, and figuring things out. But then we cut to the Doctor before he's gone up to the roof and stuff, writing down a bunch of chalk all over the floor, which is, I think, our first look at, again, another aspect of Capaldi's personality where he's more intellectual than Doctors have been previously. He relies heavily on science, and we see this even with his TARDIS later, where he turns it into a library almost, with these chalkboards and books everywhere. He's an old man, basically.
Yeah.
And then we get the scene that I was telling you about in private messages before you watched the episode, where Clara's like, I love old men. Old men turn me on. I love old guys. To justify liking Capaldi's Doctor suddenly. Weird.
Yeah. Also, for a moment, she talks about some Roman emperor, and for a brief second, I thought she was talking about Capaldi's character from what he played before, and I was thinking, did she just make a connection to where she recognized Capaldi from? And I realized a different story. But
completely different, yeah.
It would have been crazy if she recognized Capaldi from that.
Yeah, but Clara gives a pretty decent speech about how she loves old guys, and then I think it gets undermined. Again, speaking about the comedy undermining dramatic scenes, Jenny starts going, woo! yeah, woo. And I'm like, that took for me personally took the wind right out my sails. I was like, okay, cool. This is a good speech from Clara. I kind of get what she's going for here. There's a lot of passion. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, funny. Like,
But then there's the whole thing where she's like, I don't flirt with men. But then the first time we saw Clara, she hit the doctor on the bottom, flirting with him. It's like, huh? Remember
yeah,
the first?
but he
yeah.
was hot, Scott. He was. And then there's another sex joke as Vastra says that she wants Clara, and then she gets slapped on the wrist by Jenny, who's like, "Oh, but we're married." Haha. That's like what, 3 sex jokes in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And then there's a pretty decent bit of I'm half and half on the veil metaphor, where Vastra gets up and she's like, you've got to help the doctor find out who he really is and look after him and stuff like that. He's showing you his vulnerable side, and she's not wearing the veil. And Clara's like, "What happened to the veil?" And she's like, "Oh, you stopped seeing it, so it went away." And I kind of like that metaphor, but again, the veil metaphor gets pretty messy the more you try to think about what it is.
It's another case of Moffat trying to be overly smart, and he doesn't quite nail it, does he?
Yeah.
It happens a lot with him.
And then we get the dinosaur exploding into a big wall of fire, in some okay to decent green screen work, which I bet looked hideous on the cinema screen.
Yeah, it didn't look great. You could definitely tell it was just green screen.
Yeah, he's lit really weirdly.
Even on my 55-inch TV, it was just like, really?
Just a wee humble brag about the size of your TV there, was that? Is that what you're trying to slip in there? Oh yeah, my 4K Ultra HD 80-inch widescreen I just have on the wall. Yeah, it looked okay.
Also, they kind of go into I Am the Doctor here, but kind of half-assed.
I think the soundtrack for the most part in this episode is kind of forgettable.
I think the soundtrack for most of Peter Capaldi's episode is forgettable. Like, hum one song from Peter Capaldi's era.
Ooh-wee, ooh. Yeah, I literally, as soon as you said that, I was like, does he have a theme song? What is Peter Capaldi's theme song? Oh my god, I don't know if he does.
Yeah, Murray Gold definitely got a lot less work done in the final 3 seasons, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, it does kind of go into I Am the Doctor with the violins, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, but like I was trying to think, because Capaldi's best moment is his war speech. Does his war speech have music under it? Or is it just him talking?
Give me a second, I'll have to... War speech. No, it's just, yeah, he's speaking into a room and there's no music. It's just kind of like reverb of his echo, and that's all.
Well, I mean, one, kudos to that speech then, because that speech makes his Doctor. And 2, I guess Capaldi doesn't need a theme song. His performance stands on its own.
Oh yeah, he's the only person speaking in that scene, and it's just him.
It's compelling. It is incredible. Like,
and you just feel your heart kind of like sink to the ground with what he's saying.
yeah, it is. Again, it's the moment that made his. That's the moment where if you weren't on board with Capaldi, you became on board with Capaldi as the Doctor. Like,
and also he's been political, so it's a bad thing now, Matthew. It's a bad thing.
yeah, my mistake. Sorry.
It's a bad thing for Doctor Who to be political, even though it's always been political.
Doctor Who has never ever been political until they cast a woman. That is a scientifically provable fact. And then, speaking of weird sound effects, the Doctor ends up falling through a tree, and it's shot really weirdly. And then when he literally hits a tree, there's a boing sound effect as he bounces off one of the branches. It's the tone for this episode's kind of all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't look great either. It's just...
Yeah. And then again, speaking of the haha Joss Whedon witty bit, where Capaldi stops the carriage and he's like, "I'm going to have to relieve you of your pet," and the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "I was talking to the horse." Ha ha ha. Get it? Because he speaks horse as well. Like,
And then he uses his sonic screwdriver in a very confusing way.
yeah, he makes the leather spark, doesn't he?
Yeah. How?
By using sonic. Yeah, the sonic work in this is weird. And I think, is Capaldi the only doctor in New Who era to use a sonic screwdriver from a previous doctor and not have it immediately explode?
David Tennant used the Ninth Doctor's sonic,
And then
didn't he?
then it exploded. It broke, and he had to get a new one. And he
Is that
got
what
one that
happened?
looks exactly the same but has a slightly different handle.
Huh, I don't remember that.
And then when Matt Smith uses David Tennant's one, it explodes, and he gets his big chonky toy-looking one, which took me so long to like. It took me so long to like that sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, me too.
And then Capaldi had this sonic for the entire season, and then just upgrades to sunglasses because he's a rock star now. And then in his third season, he gets the blue one that he never uses.
Yeah. I don't really pay attention to the sonic screwdriver.
And then doesn't the blue one, Jodie drops it or it breaks,
I
and
think
she
it
has to build
breaks,
one.
Yeah. I don't know.
And then we get a fun reveal because the Doctor takes off with the horse, and then quickly Strax and the Vestra, Jenny, and Clara come rearing by on a horse and carriage as well. And it's presented as if they're chasing after the Doctor, but then we go into the cabin with Clara, Jenny, and Vestra, and we find out that they think the Doctor's still in bed, and they just so happen to both be going in the same direction, the same place, next to each other without realizing. Like...
Here's a fun little twist, yeah.
Also, one thing that I think that was probably done on purpose by Moffat, in this episode, Capaldi is probably the most energetic he is in any episode of his season. He's all over the place. He's running, he's on horseback, he's falling out of trees. You know, he's very physical and running and active, and I bet you that was so that Moffat could be like, see, he's not just an old guy who's going to walk about the place. He's still going to be the same Doctor, you know. Like,
I think a lot of it just has to do with the Doctor just burning energy, trying to... Because he has so much energy pent up. It's like when Paul McGann starts running around in the same spot in the movie. It's just to release some energy.
yeah, that's a pretty good reason. And then the Doctor goes up to the burning corpse of the dinosaur, and suddenly the lighting becomes incredible. I think this scene is lit so prettily because it's like done with the like flaming embers of the fire, and it looks gorgeous.
And he's just kind of looking at a wreckage that humanity has kind of caused, in a way.
Yeah, he's standing on top of the bridge, looking down the burning corpse, and is just devastated. Like he couldn't be more upset than what he is right now, staring at it, and it's a pretty good scene.
And also he kind of feels remorse for his actions in a way, because he kind of brought the dinosaur there, even if it wasn't intentional. He brought the dinosaur there and caused its death, which is kind of like heartbreaking in a way.
Yeah, it's a really strong performance from Capaldi. He's like choking on his words as he's talking, and you can see that he's blaming himself for what's happened, which is it's very good.
Him feeling guilt for the dinosaur's death would have been a much more compelling arc than, am I a good man? Just...
But, you know, he questions whether or not he's a good man because he has this anger. He's brought this dinosaur back and it ends up getting killed, which he blames himself for. Is he a good person for doing this? These are all reasons you could present.
Yeah. but him being a good man is dependent on him pushing the guy at the end, which is spoiler alert, but yeah, we'll get to that.
He calls humanity the planet of pudding brains, which was a description that I really, really enjoyed.
It's something that people talked about when this episode came out. Everybody was just saying pudding brains. There was a lot of fan art of the Doctor like kissing the dinosaur as well when this episode came out.
Gross. And then Capaldi realizes he's in a Stephen Moffat script, and Stephen Moffat loves writing Sherlock Holmes, as he stops becoming super angry at humanity and is suddenly like, have there been similar murders to this one? In which we find out, yes, of course, there have been similar murders to this one. By golly, we're now in an episode of Sherlock Holmes. Like, and then the doctor manages to find, like, again, he does his best Sherlock Holmes impression where he's like, if everybody's looking at the burning corpse, why is that guy not looking at it? You know, and that must be our culprit, or at least a suspect that we should follow. And then doesn't he commit suicide? He just jumps off the bridge.
He jumps off the bridge, yeah.
Yeah. What I like about the way that he jumps off the bridge is they don't make a big deal of it. Like, he jumps off the bridge in the background of a shot that Clara's in. Like, it's just this like little side gag where he's like, wee, as he falls. Also, him jumping off the bridge was super ineffective because doesn't he get completely lost and confused and then ends up seeing the homeless guy next? So, like, he completely loses his footing when he jumps off the bridge.
Yeah, he does. We cut to like several hours later and the doctor's just wandering around. There's no reason for him to jump off. Like, trying to run after that man would have been better.
Yeah.
But yeah, after this scene, I think this is where this episode really starts to drag. Because we just get a lot of waiting around for stuff to happen.
Yeah, I understand that point of view to it. But I really kind of enjoyed the stuff. I enjoyed the stuff with them in Victorian London together more than I enjoyed the stuff with them and the robots. I thought that they had a more compelling dynamic than the, I must hold my breath to get past all these robots. Like,
yeah.
Although I did think that was a pretty decent scene. But yeah, I think if you were to cut this down to a 40-minute episode, this stuff would be cut out.
Definitely. I would just cut to the doctor with the hobo. Yeah.
Yeah, then we got the one Strax mess that, and then we got the one Strax joke that actually made me giggle, which is when he's talking to Clara about taking the TARDIS and keeping the TARDIS with them because, you know, the Doctor will always come back for the TARDIS, and that means that eventually he'll come back to them if they've got the TARDIS. And he's like, and then we will melt them with acid. And it's a very again Moffat Wheaton style joke.
Yeah, I did not like that joke, but what I liked is the next scene he has. Well, not the next scene, the next line he has, where he throws the Times.
The next joke.
Yeah. He throws the Times newspaper at her head, and she just gets hit.
Yeah. I think I liked the blocking and performance, you know, where he's like, we will melt them with acid, and then he's like, oh no, we will not melt them with acid. It's very cartoony, like, but then yeah, the best joke in the episode is when he's like, shall I send the Times up? And she's like, oh yeah, why not? And then he just overhand throws it, clocks her in the head with it. Like, there's a really good slap sound effect as well when it hits Clara in the face.
Yes.
Like, and then we find out that Madame Vastra, Lizard Lady, has been eating criminals, like straight up just eating them. We find out that she's having the child poisoner come round for dinner, and that she's going to have him for dinner is the wording. And it's like, have him for dinner? And she's like, oh, not until after she's interrogated him, of course. You might want to stay out the larder later. I was like, oh, she's going to eat that guy. She eats humans.
Is that actually what we imply?
Yes.
I wasn't paying attention to this part.
Yeah, she eats human beings. Yum yum yum, gobble gobble gobble. This is like a series of sketches of Clara and Strax mainly. This collection of scenes, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like one of those like Pond Life where they just upload it on BBC iPlayer and just upload it before the episode comes out or something. It doesn't really feel like it connects to the actual show.
Yeah, I was about to say, it feels like something they'd upload to the Doctor Who YouTube page as like a fun short.
Yeah.
As Clara's asked Strax if she could have some water, and Strax is like, of course, and hands her the mop bucket he was just washing the floor with, and he says, it's okay, I just cleaned this water. Ha ha ha, everybody giggled.
Again, it's cute, but it's just like, this is like the 1000th joke they've kind of told in this vein. It's getting a bit tired.
like back to back joke.
Yeah.
And then Strax starts examining Clara's body for medical reasons, of course. And he's like scanning her eye and tells her to say "ah," and then when she says it, he's like, "You didn't move your mouth," because he thinks that the eye is her mouth. Ha ha ha! He doesn't know the human body. What confused me there was Sontarans have the same faces as humans.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make sense, does it?
like eye and mouth placement's the exact same on a Sontaran as it is on a human.
It does remind me of a Futurama joke. The first time we meet Zoidberg, he's like, "Open your mouth." Fry opens his mouth. No, the other mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, that prop was designed by a child, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's another good looking prop. And then we find out that Clara must have been lying when she said that she loved older men, because Strax scans her brain, right? And he sees images of, quote unquote here, muscular young men. So Clara's a filthy liar. She didn't find old men attractive. Grrr.
Or again, it's Strax just being confused. Maybe she's thinking about muscular older men.
Maybe they're not muscles, but wrinkles.
But yeah, just another line where Moffat kind of like winks at the adults in the audience.
I really like that the sex joke though, where he's like, "Is that a sport? It could be a sport." Like, and Strax starts scanning her skeleton in this bad-looking CGI skeleton over Clara's body. Like, it doesn't look super good.
Yeah, it doesn't move as she moves. It looks kind of awkward.
Yeah, also its color looks weird. It looks a bit too flat.
Yeah.
It's not, but for like the brief second that you actually see it, it's fine. If you're far enough from the TV, like, I'm only noticing that it looks bad because it's on my computer monitor that's like right next to my face. Like, I was like watching it on the TV, like, it looks fine.
And then of course we get a classic X-ray kind of joke where Strax is basically looking at her naked. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, another sex joke. We're at like what 5 now?
Yes.
But there's a line he says before the put on your clothes joke. Oh, gross. Where he's like, your predicted life expectancy, and Clara's like, "Oh, don't tell me that," and I'm like, "Haha, you'll be dead in like 2 years." Or a year, like a year, like. But I guess her predicted life expectancy would be a bit more than that, because nobody expects to be killed by a crow flying through your chest in the underground alleyway where all alien refugees live. Obviously.
And then get brought back in, like, the moment between life and death.
Yeah, but she doesn't get brought back. She gets an infinite amount of space to live out. She's always going to die in that moment, so that is where her life ends. It's just the space between there. The Doctor rips essentially a hole in time. It's such a convoluted way to have a happy ending. I think they should have just killed her.
Yes. If they just killed her, it would have been one of the best companion deaths ever.
Yeah. And one of the most unexpected, because it comes halfway through a season, and then we have like 4 episodes without Clara.
Yeah.
Where we're like, oh my god, she is just dead, isn't she? Like. And ironically, when Clara dies, we get some of the best Capaldi episodes ever.
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
I don't know what it is about Strax. I think I just like the actor that does him. I can just listen to it. He does a really good performance.
Oh yeah, he's excellent.
Yeah, as he's talking about, like, we've got to prepare for the eventuality that the Doctor's not going to come back for you. Which is, knowing the Doctor's track record is a fair assumption. He left, he obviously said goodbye to Sarah Jane, but he did just abandon her in Aberdeen.
And speaking of Sarah Jane, we then cut to a scene with her husband. This is Brian Miller, who was Liz Slazen's real-life husband. That's a good segue.
It was accidental good segue. And I don't know if her husband was an actor before, but I think he does a decent performance in this. I think he's pretty strong.
Oh yeah, he's been in Doctor Who before, actually. He was he was one of the Daleks in Resurrection of the Daleks. One of the weird sounding ones.
Yeah. But we then see the Doctor look at his own reflection, and in my naive 14-year-old brain watching this, I went, "Oh, we're going to find out why he chose this face now."
Yeah, same here.
Not that they're going to tease it for a season and a half.
They didn't tease it for a season and a half.
They forgot about it for a season and a half.
They brought it up here. I remember, like, oh shit, we forgot to explain it.
Yeah. But this whole scene with Capaldi and Sarah Jane, Liz Sladen's husband, incredible. Best scene in this episode. Incredible.
Oh yeah, I love how he's just scared.
Yeah, and the doctor's describing how cold he is, and he's very confused again, which is a bit weird. I guess, you know, it's fresh regeneration. He can come in and out of being lucid, and he's very much not lucid in this moment. And he's like, you know, I'm very cold. He's confused and he's angry and he doesn't know about his own face, and it's so good.
I do love the tragedy of kind of regeneration. It's like you wake up and you don't know who you are really. Like, you don't know what kind of personality you have, what you even look like, and it's just kind of like tragic, really.
Yeah, it's the reason why I think everybody always gets excited when the Doctor regenerates. It's 1, a chance for the show to start fresh, 2, a chance for a new Doctor, and 3, explores the Doctor in another way that perhaps we've not seen. You know, it always fleshes out a bit more of the because I think the Doctor's at their best when they're tragic, when it's the heartbreak story of the Doctor. You know, when the Doctor tries to help and just fails or just falls short or doesn't quite do the right thing, and then when you have moments like in Eccleston when he's with the lonely child, where he's like, just this once, everybody lives, you know, where it makes those moments elevate so much higher, when you're like, oh my god, the Doctor did it this time, he succeeded. And then when things with like the Doctor's war speech, even when he has to give the same speech like 60 times, if not even more than that, like to try and get the right outcome. He's just going to keep trying until he gets it right. I think it makes those moments so much more elevated when you think of the Doctor as this tragic being and not this immortal god, space Jesus, as you said. And also, speaking of the BBC and Doctor Who about an hour and a half ago, them still at this point being unable to move on from the 4th Doctor. Yeah. As Capaldi's like, I need a big long scarf. No, wait, I've moved on from that. That looks stupid. Which was, you know, almost the same joke we get with every Doctor, and was the same joke we saw last week when Paul McGann tried on the big long scarf. And then again, speaking of things that got me excited, as Capaldi's chatting to homeless man, Liz Sladen's husband, he's like, have you seen this face before? You know, I think that I have. You know, I don't know where the faces come from. They just appear. You know, it's like zap, there's the face. I'm like, they're going to explain it. They're going to explain it. They're going to explain it. Like, but they don't.
Well, we do get a good line about the eyebrows. It's all good up until the eyebrows. It just goes all haywire.
And it does. Another great line comes slightly before that. He's like, do you ever look in the mirror and think, I've seen that face before? And the guy's like, yeah. When? Every time I look in a mirror.
But yeah, the line about the eyebrows being independently cross is something Peter Capaldi made up.
It's great. It's a good line. And I think it summarizes Doctor very well. You know, it's like, even when his Doctor's trying to be calm and sweet, he just has this edge to him, like this angry edge to him. It's
why our first shot of his Doctor was the eyebrows. It's like,
oh my god, they really, really are like laying the groundwork for like, we're going to tell you why, because he's like, what am I trying to tell myself? Why did I choose this face? It's like I'm trying to make a point here, and then but then, like, you know, even the writers themselves are like, oh god, we don't know what point we're trying to make yet. It's a great line where Capaldi, after he asks those questions, the old guy goes, and the guy's like, Capaldi's like, I'm not being rhetorical. I'm looking for answers. Like,
and then there's another great line where both men are just screaming at each other, being like, I'm cold. Both of them are cold. And the Doctor's like, there's no point in us Both being cold, give me your coat.
It's going to be so hard to, and you know, people listening to this will have known what I've done already, because that's how editing works. Because this is the scene that we're doing for the cold open for this one. It's going to be so hard to choose how much of the scene I want to use because it's such a good scene. Like, and the Doctor being happy that he's Scottish because it means that he can now complain about things, which is just a fun line that I enjoy. And then he mugs a homeless guy. Yes. And then there's another fun line where just to end the scene about the Doctor's Scottishness, as he's talking about like spontaneous combustion, let's try that word again, spontaneous combustion, as he's looking at the newspaper and the homeless gentleman is like, oh, what sort of devilry is this? And he's like, oh, I don't know, but I'd probably blame it on the English.
Yes. It's a classic. You can tell Stephen Moffat really hates the English.
I mean, it's in his blood, isn't it? It's in all of our blood. The episode continues. We didn't pause for an hour and a half to take a wee break there. Flawless transition. And it would be flawless because of Scott's lovely new microphone. You would have never noticed were it not for me telling you that it happened.
I'm making kissy noises in the microphone now.
Oh,
can you hear me?
I can't hear it because Discord's very good at filtering out horrendous sounds. But I'm going to have to listen to it later on when I'm editing this episode. But we go to the scene where Lizard Lady Vastra is we think at least that she's painting her darling wife in a delicate pose as they're having a conversation over the idea of spontaneous combustion. Which, have you ever heard of spontaneous combustion before, Scott? Because I certainly have.
Yes, I have, because there's a South Park episode about it. Everybody starts farting and catching on fire. Good episode.
Never seen that episode, but I knew of spontaneous combustion because I remember, God, I must have been 8 or 9, watching the X-Files, and I don't remember if the X-Files specifically did an episode on spontaneous combustion, but I remember I was really big into the X-Files at the time, and had like the Sci-Fi channel on, or the Sci-Fi horror channel, or something like that, and a documentary came on about spontaneous combustion. It was like a conspiracy theory documentary about spontaneous combustion. And for whatever reason, that is just in my head still, like as just like embedded in me as like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Like,
what was the conspiracy theory?
That spontaneous combustion's real, and it's the cause of some people disappearing because they just burst into dust.
Wow.
Which I don't think actually holds any scientific credence, but perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps spontaneous combustion will kill us all.
Mainly because it's something that CCTV would have probably captured by this point if it's real. Or other people would be witness to it.
Yeah. And then we find out that Vastra has been, this entire time, actually working on her conspiracy theory map. Speaking of conspiracy theories, as she's trying to work out who the killer is, even though we already know who the killer is, the robot man, as she's trying to pinpoint where exactly he is in London, and we find out that, she had Jenny posing simply because she likes looking at her. Isn't that sweet? And also another sex joke.
It is. There's a lot about sex jokes, isn't there?
Yeah, more than I realized now that we're going through it scene by scene. It's like every scene has one. We find out that the theory, at least, that they have for them burning, for the robot man burning all the bodies, is that if you burn the bodies, you can't see what's missing, because of course we know the robot man is taking away parts to put into his own body.
It's an incredible thing to reach to, isn't it? Like there's no.
She gets there shockingly fast. It's incredible, yeah.
Like there's no evidence to support this theory at all. Just something for the plot to move on.
It's their first theory they have, their first idea, and they just 100% commit to that's the right idea.
We don't even know if robots are involved is the thing as well. Like,
Yeah. But hey, it's already an hour and a half long episode. Why tease it out anymore? Then Clara bursts into the room and we have another sex joke where Vastra's like, "Oh, Clara, it's lovely to see you. Put your clothes over there." Like, and then there was a joke that did make me laugh when Vastra's like, advertisements. Yeah, it's a troubling modern trend. Like, and this is where we find out that there's an advert asking for an impossible girl, which we know is Clara's nickname from that one storyline she did when we get introduced to Clara with Matt Smith.
a storyline I'd rather forget about because it was just really bad.
I thought it was fine. And then they're like, it must be a message from the doctor. Oh, but what does it mean? Where would he want to meet us? And they're like, use your brain. The doctor's this lazy guy who's a bit weird. He'll put it in the most obvious spot, the other side of the newspaper, where they find the restaurant. And I have a few questions about this. I don't think that's how putting adverts in newspapers work. How did the doctor know what would be on the other side? Is he working for the newspaper? Well, we know the doctor isn't actually printing the thing. Yeah.
Yes.
But like in their working theory, do they think the doctor works in the print office?
Well, the doctor is a weird man, isn't he? He could have easily just designed a whole newspaper page. It's plausible.
He timey-wimeyed it. Timey-wimeyed it. Yeah.
But yeah, of course, we know later on it's Missy who was leading them on.
Doing her mysterious business in heaven, because I forgot that this was the series with heaven in it.
It is an awfully big coincidence that Clara would notice that, would pick up the newspaper in the first place. Like, why would she pick up the newspaper? Because it's old
because it
news at
was
this point?
It was a few things. It was walloped off her head. It was completely bashed into her skull. And the second time, yeah, it's completely out of dated stuff, but it would be pretty cool to be like, I wonder what was happening on this day in Victorian ages. It's a piece of history that you're really not going to find anywhere.
I guess, but, I wouldn't read it for sure, because I think newspapers are boring.
Yeah, very. But we then end up at the restaurant where they figured out where it is. And I really like this restaurant scene, mainly for the interaction between the Doctor and Clara. But what I do like is in the wide shot of the restaurant, because everyone in this restaurant we find out are robots that aren't eating their food or doing anything right, which I thought was a really clever way of using the extras who never are eating food or talking or anything like that. They're all mimicking it. As even in the wide shot, they're still acting like robots, and unless you're looking for it, you don't notice it because you're so used to seeing extras as extras. It was a very clever way of doing it.
Oh yeah, when I watched this in the cinema, I was just like, why are none of the extras speaking or making any kind of noise? Why is everything silent? Did they fuck up? And then also we get a very good reason for why the sound is like that.
Yes, it's very, very good. And then Clara notices a rather unfortunate smell as the Doctor is suddenly sitting next to her. And the Doctor's like, yeah, that smell's been following me. I don't know what it is.
But he does pop up just suddenly in a scene in this episode quite a bit. He's like Batman, really.
And then this whole conversation is very much like a mother telling off her lying child. Like trying to catch them out, where she's like, where'd you get that jacket from? He's like, I bought it. And she's like, well, where from? He's like, a shop. She's like, well, straight up, I don't believe you. You're lying. Like,
it goes back to a thing we spoke about in the TV movie where I said, but the Doctor is very baby-like when he starts regenerating. He is very baby-like in this episode, I think.
He, especially in this scene particularly, he's very, very childlike. Like stroppy toddler almost.
Yeah.
What I really enjoy in this scene is Clara starts telling the Doctor that she's definitely cross with him, and the Doctor's like, well, I knew you'd be cross with me, I guess that, and blah blah, and they're chatting back and forth, and it's pretty fun. And then Clara's like, if somebody that was regular wanted to find out and get in touch with a friend and meet for lunch, what would they do? And the Doctor's like, they would call up probably and be like, I want to have lunch. And then she's like, and who would put a cryptic note in a newspaper, like a complete nut job? And Capaldi says that it would be an egomaniac, needy game player sort of person. And Clara's like, yeah, exactly. It would be a person like that, you know? And she's like thinking the doctor's on board with her. And then, of course, we find out that the doctor was thinking that she put the note in and was talking about her the whole time, which was just something I loved. It's a fun wee joke there. Like,
They have great chemistry in this scene, though.
yeah, they do. They work really well together. Which is surprising because it's not often that companions last more than one doctor. And Clara went through 2 doctors, and she was with Capaldi for a long time, like 2 seasons with Capaldi. And what, a season with Matt Smith? A season and a bit.
Yeah.
So like, very, very, very interesting. And she worked well with both of them, I think. I think I like her with Capaldi more than Smith. Oh my goodness, I got heartburn.
Oh, God.
I think I like her. Oh my god, I think I like her with Capaldi more than I like her with Smith. Not that I thought they were bad with Smith. I just think her and Capaldi have a more fun back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
Whereas with Smith, it's like oogling eyes, like ooh.
Yeah, that's totally my point as well. Just like, I was tired of the whole flirty subplot when Amy was kind of flirting with the doctor as well. It does get tiresome, and this is a good change, I think.
Yes, I'm so on board with companions not being love interests. Like, I'm so on board with them just being friends that they travel with the doctor. They don't need to hook up. Like, they figure out that neither of them sent the thing, and they're like, oh boy, who sent this mysterious advert then? It couldn't have been a coincidence. That would be too convenient. And there's Clara starts figuring out that the doctor called her an egomaniac, essentially, and she's like, what the hell were you talking about? And she basically stops caring about the fact that they've been met up by this stranger who placed an ad to get them in this location, and the doctor's like, we're in a trap. And he essentially tricks Clara with speech into admitting that she has egomania.
Yeah.
Which, again, just their back and forth in the scene is very, very, very good. And then Clara again hates old people as she tells the doctor he should pull out all of his grey hairs.
Although I prefer Peter Capaldi with longer hair in the later seasons.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's weird watching Capaldi with a short haircut because, like, by his season 3, he's just let his hair go basically wild, and it really suits him. Like,
yeah, the shorter hair doesn't suit him as much, does it?
Yeah. But he then pulls out Clara's hair because his hair is too short. As we were just saying, he has very short hair in this first episode. And he drops it to the ground, or he holds it out or something to check the movement of air in the room because nobody else is breathing, it's a pretty clever, if not convoluted, way to figure out that there's no breath in the room.
Yeah, it is a bit convoluted because I don't know if that holds up in real life, if you can do that to test it for our people in the room. Could you?
I'm sure having that many, having 50 bodies in a room will interfere with the airflow in a certain way, surely, because everybody's breathing and pushing the air and talking and things like that. Whether or not, I guess the doctor's this genius alien that he'd notice a little subtle movement in a hair. I don't know how big the movement would actually be if you were to drop a hair with one person in the room compared to if you dropped it with 50. We need to get Brainiac on the phone. Remember the TV show Brainiac?
Yes.
Things that make you go,
Or we could try that out in real life. Just get a room full of 50 people and just try it out.
Yeah. Screw COVID. Everybody cram into this room. We need to test if hair will fall faster.
It's for science.
And this is where we find out, where we get the reveal at least, that the robots aren't actually eating food, and it's all been very clever staging, and everybody gives a big round of applause in the cinema. Which and then suddenly we start hearing the grinding of all their arms moving and stuff like that. Because of course these are the clockwork robots, which we have met before, but we'll get there soon.
What do you think of Capaldi's hobo outfit in this episode, by the way?
I really like it.
So do I. Especially with fingerless gloves. I think it really suits him.
Yeah, I think it really suits him as well. And it would be a fun change of costume for the Doctor to be a time-traveling hobo, but
Yes.
also kind of glorifying homelessness. So it's like, which way do you want to go? But it does suit Capaldi.
I think the second Doctor had the nickname of the hobo quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clara and the Doctor decide that they're just going to leave, but they're going to hold their breath when they leave so that they don't realize that they're leaving or that they're humans or something. The Doctor clocks onto the holding your breath thing really, really quickly.
But they didn't notice when they walked into the room and started having a conversation.
Yeah. I guess because they wanted them to sit down in the room because they could get trapped. But, yeah.
Yeah. But maybe trap them before they figure out what's going on.
Yeah, why let them talk for this long? Why not just send the... Because the chair moves down underground, so why not do that immediately? Why give them this time to figure it out?
Because they've been talking about 4 minutes at this point.
Yeah, why give them that time to figure it out? Oh, I forgot about this scene. So they sit back down and they start looking at the menus as like a cover, and they're like, okay, so where are we right now? What's going on in this restaurant? And then the waiter approaches them, and they do a bit where the Doctor's like, there's no sausages, do you have a kid's menu? There's no pictures, ha ha ha. And the waiter scans the Doctor for body parts. And the waiter starts scanning them for body parts and starts listing off things, and there's a bit where Clara's like, oh, those popular items on the menu, ha ha ha, spleen, and then the Doctor rips the face off the waiter. It was like,
and then he discovers it's an actual human face, and then puts it on
he
Clara's
puts it on
face.
Clara's face. Yeah. When that happened, I was like, Jesus Christ. What,
But it's kind of played off as if it's something that's very light, but it feels like it should be something more dramatic
it's
than
like
that.
scarring. You're like, it's absolutely terrifying to do that to somebody. But then the robot decides that it also wants to have a laugh, and it goes, yes, we have a children's menu. Like, I don't know why the robot would say that, but it's a pretty funny line. And then they get strapped in the chairs and they get sucked down underground, as we said.
And then we start playing music that sounds kind of like I Am the Doctor again.
It's like the first two notes repeated.
Yes. Are we just going to hear I Am the Doctor throughout this entire show?
Yeah, we are, because it's the greatest theme song.
Well, this does kind of give off like haunted house kind of vibes, doesn't it? It's like a theme park.
Yeah, I can see that.
But when the Doctor and Clara drop down into like a basement kind of thing, and the Doctor is immediately like, I want to speak to your manager, Dr. Karen much?
Also, there's a bit where Clara goes, I don't think this is a restaurant, and Capaldi like has a look on his face and sighs where he's like, of course, oh my god, like up to this point he still thought it was a restaurant, like and that's when everything clicks with him, where he's like, oh wait, yeah, we're getting harvested for organs here, that's what all this thing is, and he goes on to explain it. But it's like that brief moment where he's like where he's like, oh, this. So when he was demanding to see the manager, he legitimately just had an issue with this restaurant. Yeah.
He also does make a great Sweeney Todd reference, which I'm happy about.
Yeah. Clara has to shake out the sonic screwdriver from her jacket pocket and kick it over to the Doctor, because for some reason Clara has a hold of it. I don't know why she does. Maybe did Matt Smith give it to her in The Town Called Christmas? I
haven't seen that episode in years, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that he did.
His old jacket was in the house, so I guess she got it from the jacket.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. And then Capaldi says a line that really made me go, yay, when I was like 14, because it's the biggest bit of fan service possible. When Clara's trying to get the sonic screwdriver and the Doctor goes, oh, I miss Amy. because of course Amy was a very long-legged lady. Uh, and which Clara's like, what? Who's that? But I do enjoy it when Doctor Who makes references to previous companions, because it's so easy for Doctor Who to ignore the history of Doctor Who. It's unlike most TV shows in that they can have like a rotating cast and never mention any of the previous incarnations, and it just makes it feel more like the same United show when they actually mention stuff that's happened before to other versions of the Doctor. That I very much enjoy it.
I remember being very surprised in one episode where Matt Smith is in the TARDIS and he's looking at the holograms that the TARDIS is projecting, and one of them is Rose Tyler. And I remember
I loved that. I loved when that happened.
Yeah, I just remember being surprised because at that point Stephen Moffat was like, "Oh, this is a total reboot. We won't be mentioning anything beforehand." And then Rose Tyler pops up and it's like, yes.
I feel like Moffat just said that to annoy people. Like...
Yes. like there was a point where Moffat was like, "Oh, I'm going to call the new series Series 1, just to confuse people."
And then we get not so much a sex joke, but a sexual organ joke, as Clara kicks up the sonic screwdriver and it hits the Doctor in his penis. So that is happened.
How many sex jokes have we seen in Doctor Who at this point?
Boo, somebody should go through and tally it. But in this episode, I think we're at like 7. We must be.
There was
6 or 7.
There was a lot in the TV movie as well.
There was, yeah. Although Capaldi has a line that I do enjoy after the Sonic hits him in the dick, where he goes, "Oh, the symbolism," because of course it's this gigantic screwdriver. Like it's like Matt Smith's ones particularly is huge, and his sonic screwdriver is pretty big as well. Ha
ha!
They sonic themselves free, which I think is the second time the sonic has been used to free like the horse and then them in this episode. A theme that never really comes back with Capaldi, which I'm glad about. He doesn't use the sonic to jigger stuff much. And this is where they find out that they're definitely robots that are harvesting these body parts, and that they definitely killed the dinosaur and have been doing all the murders, all information that we know basically at this point. But then Capaldi's like, droids harvesting parts, that sounds familiar. And your first thought would be Jawas from Star Wars. But there is a very specific Doctor Who villain in which that these robots are, and 10 points if you can get it without looking at the episode. Which was, I'm talking to the audience, really.
Right.
Which was something that I never got. I never picked up on the first time I watched it. I completely missed the small reference they make to it later on, which we will get to. We'll continue to tease it out for people, even though they've probably watched the episode.
But honestly, this is such a dark concept, but it doesn't get explored nearly enough. Like, it's a super grim concept, if you think about it.
Yeah, robots murdering people to steal their organs so that they can pretend to be human, I guess is their end game. And yeah, they don't do much with it other than to make a pretty okay-looking villain, and then to have, like, a moral conversation with the Doctor, and that's basically it. My ears are suddenly ringing, goddamn.
That's with my voice.
And then we get a pretty cool looking effect shot where the Doctor's looking at this big bad who's currently charging in his chair. How he signaled them to go downstairs when he was charging in his chair, I don't know. Or did he send them down and then be like, "Oh, my battery's a bit low, I should charge." But we look at his hands and we see that one hand is smaller than the other, which was a pretty good looking effect. And when I saw this, I was like, how are they going to get around having to do this for the entire episode? Which they do by having him take off the larger hand and replace it with like a flamethrower. Like, that's a pretty clever way of getting around that.
It is a better way than, remember in The Walking Dead, one of the characters loses his arms and he's just holding like a hook, but you can tell it's just an extension of his existing arm. Yeah. Doctor Who does better hand effects, that's for sure. Also, I just realized these are kind of like the anti-Cybermen. Instead of humans turning themselves into robots, it's robots turning themselves into humans, which is a interesting twist.
Yeah, it's a pretty good. That's a fun wee thing that I never picked up on. Yeah, that's pretty good. But then the doctor's trying to like examine the robot body, and then he starts to wake up, and they're like, oh, we should go. And then they start to leave the door, and then the doctor's like, oh, but there's something familiar about those robots. What is it? And then Clara, like the blocking's a bit weird here. So the doctor's behind Clara. He walks back out of the room into the room where the big bad guy is. Clara's in the hallway. Then Clara runs from the hallway to go to the doctor, and then the doctor goes into the hallway, and then a door closes separating them. They kind of like circle each other twice before getting separated by a closing door, which is a bit weird blocking, but you know, it's over in 2 seconds, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And then I was going to make another point, but I've forgotten what that point was going to be.
Because you're stupid. Yes.
Indeed I am. Oh, I remember what it was now. Looking at the doctor's costume, because, you know, he's dressed as the homeless man at the moment. He's got, like, this big, long coat on, which, you know, long coat's classic for a doctor. What I kind of would love is if they did almost an Arthur Dent sort of thing from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
A doctor going around in his dressing gown, I think would be excellent. Like,
And slippers. That'd be great.
yes.
Although, maybe Peter Cushing did wear slippers in that movie he did. Because in Star Wars, he wore slippers on set throughout the entire movie. So...
Yeah, I forgot Peter Cushing did a Doctor Who movie, didn't he? Doctor Who and the Daleks, isn't it?
Yeah, and he did another one, Doctor Who and the Daleks, whatever that one's called.
Yeah. We'll cover them on the show at some point. They're on BritBox. But yeah, I think if in the fantasy world, if I get cast as the Doctor, that's what I would argue my Doctor to wear. Pajamas and a dressing gown. You know, it's what I wear most of the time anyway. I think it would be a pretty fun look.
It would be. It would be unique, anyway. I thought you'd get cold on set, I'd imagine.
Not if it's a big, thick dressing gown. Nice furry one.
Or a doctor wearing a furry outfit. That'd be interesting as well. But the doctor locking Clara in is quite a dark moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just rewatching it because Clara asks him for the Sonic, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, give me the Sonic, and the doctor's like, but I might need it. And then he locks the door, trapping her with the big bad guy without a Sonic, which is, yeah, definitely a dark thing that I don't think he would do again. But again, this is him still trying to figure out his body.
I kind of wish he did do this again, because he's obviously doing it just to get information out of the robots, and if he kept on using companions as like a pawn, it could have been more interesting to explore his darker side, I think. Because it fits with the Doctor. Because sometimes uses his companions to get information and shit like that.
Yeah. I think if he was to do that, though, he would run through companions like nobody's business, because people would get sick of his stuff real quick. Like...
True. It would be more interesting to explore the Doctor's darker side than, did he push the robot man? Which we'll get to.
But then Clara basically is trapped alone with the robot man, who's like apparently not as sensitive to senses as the other robots, because she's sitting there sobbing and making a lot of noise, and he's not realizing she's there. Whereas with the other robots we see, if you take even much as a breath, they instantly start trying to stab you, which is a bit weird. But she quickly figures out that she has to pretend to be a robot, and stands in place and starts to hold her breath and stuff. And I think I tried it when I was 14. I definitely didn't try it again when I was watching it this time, to hold my breath as long as Clara has to.
I definitely tried it while I was in the cinema. I was just like, can I hold my breath that long? And when I kept my breath, and then I was like, no, I can't.
I think I could probably hold my breath close to that long, but she does hold it for an exceptionally long time.
I do wonder if anyone passed out watching this episode, though.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to try it, because I'm like, why would I want to put myself through pain to see if I can hold my breath as long as someone who isn't actually holding their breath because it's a fictional TV show?
It goes back to the question last week. Would you rather hold your breath or not blink? I
Yeah,
think not
yeah.
blink would be the alternative.
I mean, she has to hold her breath and not blink. Like,
True.
she doesn't blink once the entire time, as far as I'm aware. At least her eyes are wide open.
And then we get a bit of a flashback to something that happened, 2 minutes ago?
Yeah, but I think it works pretty well, dramatically speaking. There's sometimes where you need voiceover and sometimes you need flashbacks. I think this is definitely a scene where you need a bit of a flashback. It just adds that bit more of a, ooh, this is what you have to do sort of thing. I definitely think it would work without it, but I get why they put it in.
But we can tell that she's holding her breath. Like, we don't need the doctor explaining it again. Like last week with Blink, there was a weird flashback in that episode as well.
Yeah, I think it adds a bit more to the drama, but I do agree with you also. God, she does hold her breath for a ridiculously long time, though, doesn't she?
She
It's
really
like
does.
A solid, 2-3 minutes. Although I think that this scene builds a lot of tension for Clara, as we see her holding her breath, and then she steps into the other room, which is filled with light, and then when she's in the other room, you think she's safe. Oh no, there's even more robots in this room. She has to hold her breath for even longer still. And the music is this constant swelling sound. It just adds to the pressure even more. You're never getting that release of breathing out. You're just constantly at that high tension.
It is a pretty good Clara moment, I think. One of the rare good Clara moments, honestly. In this episode especially.
Yeah. I still think she's a decent enough companion, just they made her too important all the time. But I don't put that on Clara nor Jenna Coleman's fault. Very much Moffat's writing that hurt Clara more than anything. And, she's no longer the worst companion we've had.
True, but I'd rather have a companion do nothing than be the most important person of all time.
At least Clara had a personality.
True.
She fought back with the doctor in that scene just there. She had a personality. She was not taking nothing from him, whereas the companions now are blank slates that go, yes, doctor, what's that, doctor? But anyway, back to the show. We get a really cool shot, I think, from Clara's perspective as she's looking at the robots, and then there's flashing red on the sides
as she's losing consciousness. Yeah. And then we get a weird flashback to Clara at school where she's teaching a bunch of unruly kids, and it's like, huh? Why is this here?
Yeah, it's literally there just so that she could use the thing that the mean kid said to her that she can say to the bad guy. They're what you gonna do about it, sort of thing, or go on, do it. That's what it is.
And the mean kid comes back in Kill the Moon, one of the best episodes ever.
Literally one of the worst episodes ever of Doctor Who. But yeah, this flashback scene's just for that one thing. It's it doesn't even work as you think Clara's about to die, because who on their about to die flashes back to that one time a student was mean to you when you were working. It's not very dramatically satisfying, is it? You're like, oh, Clara's goodbye. She flashes back to this one kid being mean to her, and then she's gone.
Yeah, it's really weird. And also, just the fact that Clara's a teacher, it all just came out of nowhere last season as well.
Yeah, Clara, who had a new job every goddamn season.
Like she needed to become a teacher so she could teach at Cool Hill School, just because that was in the first episode. That's the only reason why she became a teacher.
Yeah, and it was great. I liked Clara being a teacher more than I liked her being a babysitter.
Yeah.
And did she have a job after teacher, or was she teacher till she died? What was her job in season 2? God, I don't remember. Need to rewatch it, but.
Oh yeah, another thing. Sorry to go back, but the last scene where Clara's holding her breath, I don't hear this on the BBC iPlayer I'm listening on my laptop, but when I was watching it on my TV, there's a great sound design of just Clara's heartbeat just going faster and faster.
Yeah,
I didn't quite hear that here, but on my TV it was great sound design.
Yeah, no, I heard that with my big fancy headphones, indeed. But yeah, the robot says to Clara that tell us where the doctor is or we'll kill you. And then Clara remembered that one rude kid who was rude to her in class, and she goes, "Go on, Anne, do it, kill me, Anne, go on." And then the robot complies and kills her, and that was the end of Clara.
Yeah, it was a strange way to end the episode, but there we go. Anyway,
Yeah,
we'll catch you next week, guys.
See you next week.
I wonder if we'll trick anyone. I'm sorry, listening to Courtney say "do it" just reminds me of Palpatine.
Who's Courtney?
The girl. She's like, "Do
Ah,
it,
is that her name? Right.
do it."
Well, Courtney is the Senate.
I need to replace that clip with Palpatine now. I do like Clara's sentiment of being like, threats don't mean nothing if you kill me, you can't get any information. But also the idea of the Clockwork people can still torture her to get the information. I don't know.
I really like this scene, right? I really like Clara out-logicking the robot in that the death threat doesn't work, and so the robot's like, "Oh, I'll torture you," and Clara's like, "Oh, you could torture me, but you're already diminishing your threat, so why would I take you seriously? And I'll endure a lot of pain." And then the robot stands up and he takes off his hand. You can see that Clara is terrified and she's trying her best to logic her way out of it, and even gets to the point where she's crying and she's still being like, "No, I'm not going to give you any information." And she literally says, she's like, "Yeah, I'm crying right now, but that's just because I'm terrified of you, but I'm going to stand my ground here." And it's this really human almost, where her body is betraying her, but she doesn't want to seem like she's scared. She's trying to be braver than she actually is. I think it's a really good moment for Clara.
Also, just thinking of this, I think this could have been a good opportunity to show the Clockwork guy kind of becoming more human. Like, he hesitates because he doesn't want to hurt any more humans, which would have been a good contrast with the Doctor at the end of the episode, who pushes him out the TARDIS, or whatever the fuck that was.
Or does he?
Yeah. But yeah, it could have been a good contrasting moment. But the design of the Clockwork guy does look pretty decent, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool looking design. I love the Clockwork robots, even when in their first appearance, of course. Hint, 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 hint. I think their first appearance, they looked much cooler than they do in this one, but I think it's a pretty understandable quote-unquote upgrade that they have in this episode. We find out that they burned up the big dinosaur for a small sliver of optic nerve that was behind the dinosaur's eye, which shows the destruction that they're willing to go through to get one tiny piece of flesh, which is a plot point that will come back later in the conversation with Capaldi and the floating airship thing. And again, the dinosaur really plays no part in this plot at all, does it?
Really doesn't.
Like, you could get the same thing if he burned up, like, a person.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, "Oh, they burned up this person. Why did they burn up this person? Let's go, for a piece of sliver behind their eye." And you get the same information. The only reason it's a dinosaur is so you can start the episode with a dinosaur in London.
You can tell that Stephen Moffat had that idea for at least a little while, and he had no idea how to get it out. I mean, he was like, "Oh, just throw it in this episode, whatever."
It's a cool visual, don't get me wrong. It looks cool. And it's an exciting way to start the episode, but it doesn't do anything for the plot. And then we find out that the robots are wanting to go to the Promised Land, which will come back. This season's arc basically is the heaven that Missy creates in the cloud. And it's weird and not the best plot line, but Missy and Capaldi have the best chemistry in the world, so I will watch literally anything with them together.
Yeah, and then the series final has a weird moment where they reveal that people who are cremated die for real, which is really scarring for young children, I think.
Yeah, but I think also people die for real anyway is the thing that they're going with. It's just like if you burn them up, you can't get uploaded to the cloud that Missy
Yeah.
created.
But
Because
in the world, you're essentially saying that people who are cremated won't get into heaven. I'm sure that scarred a lot of kids.
yeah, or you could look at it from the perspective of if you get cremated, you won't be turned into a Cyberman zombie.
True, I guess. But when Cyberbreak exists, he was a good Cyberman.
Yeah.
Good old Cyberbreak.
And 1 in 8 billion Cybermen, worth the gamble. And then Clara's like, I'll get out of this situation because I know the doctor and the doctor will help me. And if I know the doctor, he's going to be right behind me and he's going to take my hand. And then there's a really good bit of suspense, I think, where we're like, is the doctor going to come and take is the doctor going to come and take her hand? Jesus Christ. We're waiting for ages, and you see the disappointment in Clara's face, and then we even get double turned again when someone does grab her hand, but it's not the doctor, it's the robot guy. But then, oh wait, it is the doctor. He's just wearing another face because he really loves putting faces on people for some reason. I think it's a pretty fun fake out.
Also, at this point, the doctor's been off screen for 8 minutes, so it does lead to, like, he might not be there. Who knows? It builds up a lot of tension.
And also, the doctor can hold his breath for a very long time.
Also, he just wore the face of another man who was skinned, apparently.
Yep.
No problem.
We find out that the doctor isn't a fan of karaoke or mime. So, there you go. There's some information about that doctor.
Although I feel like this doctor would be a fan of karaoke. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, he's a rock star, isn't he?
Yeah. If this show is realistic, the doctor would have a lot of blood in his face from wearing that face.
No, it's they said before the skin to stop it rotting. It's like dried out and salted and stuff.
Ah, good point.
It's tanned. It's like leather, so there's no blood in it.
Well, either way, it would probably stink.
Oh yeah, definitely wouldn't smell good. But the doctor's already wearing homeless man clothes, so.
True.
But this is where the doctor does a big rousing heroic speech against the big bad guy, and he calls Clara a control freak, and it's like, haha, very funny. And then he's like, why would you invite us to come here in the newspaper? And the big bad guy is like, I definitely didn't do that. And it's a pretty interesting concept to have a villain of the show not aware of who the doctor is, not really wanting to meet him at all, and not knowing why he's here, and like they just kind of stumble into each other's paths.
Yeah. Also, it's weird that Missy would be so keen on the idea of the doctor and this robot man meeting. Like, what's the end game?
I don't know. And then I think maybe for the last time in Doctor Who history, they say the words Geronimo.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fit Capaldi's Doctor at all. I'm glad they didn't keep with it.
I know.
And then the episode gets a little bit silly as Lizard Lady and Lizard Lady lover Jenny come tumbling down like super spies through the roof.
I kind of like it.
And then we get Strax doing his best impression of the new guy in the new season from the trailer.
Yeah, John Noble, yeah.
yeah, as he falls from the ceiling. It's literally the same joke.
Well, I think Jenny and Vastra kind of like untwirling from the rope is very cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's a cool visual, yeah. Clara has a great line where she finds out that Vastra called the police, where she's like, wait, she called the police? Why don't we ever do that? We should definitely start calling the police, which, calling back to last week on Blink, when the guy's looking at the TV and he's like, go to the police, you stupid women. Why does no one ever go to the police?
Stephen Moffat sure does love his meta humor. I wonder if you like this vegetarian line.
Yeah, I do. It's a good one. The doctor confirms that meat is, in fact, murder. As he calls the restaurant a slaughterhouse, and he's like, it's no different than any other restaurant.
There is a decent episode of Torchwood about meat. It's called Meat. It's very good. It's about...
What's the episode about?
So yeah, there's basically a giant alien, and people start harvesting it for meat, but it keeps on regenerating, and we just keep on harvesting, and it's in torture, and it's a pretty decent episode. It's a good episode.
Interesting.
It's very bleak though, as you can imagine.
The big bad guy starts to run away as the other robots come in to attack, and this is basically the split off that we get with the cast as the Doctor sneakily follows the big bad guy up to his airship while Clara and Vastra, Jenny, and Strax are left to fight the robots below.
Also, I feel like Clara should have come with the Doctor or something, because, she's not very good at fighting, is she? So she's kind of like stranded there.
Yes, I know 100% why the reason she didn't come, though.
Yeah, we needed to have a Doctor kill that man and have a conflict,
or maybe not kill that man, but the reason why he's alone is because Clara's his moral compass.
Yeah, that's a good point.
he needs to be able to face that decision himself and face who he is without relying on his companion to tell him what's right and wrong. There's a pretty fun line when the big bad guy comes up in the restaurant and the police are there, and he turns on his flamethrower hand and goes, "The restaurant is closed." I'm like, that's a pretty fun line. It definitely looks like a line that would be in the trailer.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the Doctor pouring some whiskey, and it becomes one of my favorite things in Doctor Who, which is when two people simply sit down and talk about morals. It's what I loved in Resurrection of the Daleks when Peter Davison and Davros just talked about morals of murder and justifications of how they were going to get out of this. And it's what I like in this one as well. I still think it's really well written, where the Doctor's like, I'm going to have to kill you if you don't change what you're doing.
It feels very much like a Western, where they're just having drinks and it's going to end in a bloody fight.
Yeah.
Well, not a bloody fight because one of them can't bleed, but you know my point.
And another thing we learn about Capaldi's Doctor, he's a big fan of alcohol. Not many other Doctors are, but this one enjoys a whiskey.
Yeah, the Doctor doesn't drink much.
Yeah, we know that Eccleston drinks as well. Because of a line that Rose says to her mother when her mother is asking her questions about the Doctor. She goes, "Does he drink?" And Rose goes, "Of course he drinks." So there's a fact about Eccleston's Doctor as well. I don't know why that's in my head, but it is.
Yeah, it's a really out of random line.
It's just in my head. Capaldi is this is where we find out that the clockwork robots are the same clockwork robots from the episode with David Tennant, which I think is actually a way better episode than this one. But
yes,
but he says a line here where he's like, "So your restaurant is your spaceship," and that just clicked with me. Do you think that's where Moffat came up with his idea to send Clara off in a spaceship traveling diner?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
But yes, we find out that these are the same clockwork robots from the... God, I don't remember the name of the ship. What was the name of the ship?
I don't remember the name of the ship, but I know the episode was called Girl in the Fireplace.
Yes. Hang on, I'll say the name in a moment.
SS Madame de Pompadour.
Yes, the Madame de Pompadour. As from the episode The Girl in the Fireplace with David Tennant, where he can travel through time, traveling through the fireplace.
Wait. Doctor travel through time? Unheard of.
Yeah, really? They've only did it in that one episode. It was weird. But that's a very, very strong episode of Doctor Who. I think it's the best episode in season 2.
Yes, it definitely is. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, honestly. Just, ugh.
It is. and also probably one of Tennant's best performances as well. Like, and also one of the best designed villains. It's such a good episode. I love those robot designs. Like the sleek glass heads they have with the clockwork inside. I think we talked about this in maybe Resurrection of the Daleks, or possibly it was what did we do after Resurrection?
The demons.
Yeah. We definitely talked about it before. I don't remember which
Yes.
episode it was, but yes, I do enjoy that robot design so much. But we find out, of course, that these are the same robots, which it's a reference that they make so quickly after building it up that I missed it the first time watching it.
I did not miss it the first time, only because I knew about it before the episode aired. So, there's that.
Oh wow, loser.
I'm a learned man. I know shit. I'm smart.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. I think it's a fun way of bringing back a new Who villain in a unique way. Especially this like villain that I think possibly would be better as a one-shot villain. That they don't come back, but this is a
Yeah.
pretty creative way to bring them back, I guess.
It kind of reminds me of how Russell T Davies used the Autons in Rose, because
Yeah.
they're kind of characters that don't work well on their own unless you got a fun plot to go along with it. Because if the girl in the fireplace was just about the robots, it wouldn't be as good. But because you could have that timey-wimey-ness to it, that's what made the episode.
Was Girl in the Fireplace written by Moffat as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Another
why
one
it's so good.
another one of his great creations. And yeah, Girl in the Fireplace really relies on the Doctor and Madame Pompadour chemistry together, and also the fun gimmick of the time-traveling door, where he keeps appearing in different areas of time. And it also has maybe one of my favorite lines of the Tennant era, where he's like, he calls it the door something scientific. He's like, I don't know, I didn't want to call it a magic door.
Doesn't the Doctor drink in that one too? I remember him.
Yeah, he gets
pretending.
drunk
Yes.
in that one. Yeah, he gets.
What is it about these clockwork men that makes the Doctor want to drink?
Maybe it's, when you look into the heart of the Tard, into the eye of the vortex, you hear the sound of drums. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the sound of drums mixed with the clicking from the clockwork just triggers something in the Doctor's brain. He's like, I gotta drink.
But yeah, we get a reveal that the restaurant is actually a spaceship that's like a hot air balloon, but the balloon
made of
is
human skin. Yeah.
which is horrifying, and it doesn't go in much detail in this episode.
Yeah, and it's a giant balloon as well. Like, we see the balloon. It is huge.
If this wasn't a kids show at like tea time, this would be so much more scary. Like if this was a post Watershed show, I think it would
Yeah.
be like the most scary episode of TV ever.
Capaldi asks the robot what it thinks about the View, because the robot's more human than robot at this point, and I think really the Doctor's trying to gauge if it is a sentient being.
Yeah.
Where he's like, does this thing have independent thought? Is it thinking on itself? Does it have feelings? Can I justify killing it? Like,
And it definitely is not human. It doesn't act like a human at all.
no, but it has thoughts. It's definitely self-aware, at least.
Yeah, but I guess so is my phone. I could use Alexa, and it doesn't mean my phone
but-
is self-aware.
It's true. It's hard. There's a really good analogy. I don't remember where I heard it from. Actually, no, I do know where I heard it from. It was the Friendship Onion, which is a podcast with the Merry and Pippin from Lord of the Rings. Very good podcast. They actually started the same week we started Who Watches Who, so that's interesting. We have the same number of episodes they do. They release every Tuesday. We release every Friday. We should email them and team up. But they were talking about AI and if AI could become self-aware and what would that mean. And a good argument against self-aware AI is, say you're in a hotel in China, and you don't speak a word of Chinese. You go into your hotel room, and you close the door and lock the door, and in front of you, you see a book written in perfect English, explaining to you what Chinese symbols mean and what to do if you see Chinese symbol. And then a waiter comes up to your door and passes a note through the door in Chinese. You take the note and you look at the book and you figure out what it says, and then you write in Chinese back to him and passes it through the door. From the waiter's perspective, you speak fluent Chinese. He doesn't know you have this cheat sheet essentially, and you're just regurgitating what the book tells you to say. So you don't actually know what you're saying. You're just relying on this other source and repeating what you're told. And so, are you speaking fluently Chinese? Are you self-aware, or are you just following commands?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like parrots as well. We can have like conversations with them, but it's like pre-programmed essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Like you can train a parrot to say a certain phrase when you say a certain phrase and pretend to have a conversation, but it's not actually a conversation.
Yeah, it's a really fun thought experiment on what exactly it means to be self-aware and to be sentient.
Oh god, I just imagined the hot air balloon bursting and just all of London being covered in blood. Could you imagine? What a fun day that would be.
Yeah. A beautiful day to take your kids out. And then the Doctor uses another analogy to describe the robot, one that WandaVision stole, where he's talking about the broom, and he's like, if you have a broom and you replace the bottom of it and then you replace the pole of it, is it the same broom? Which he goes, no, of course not, but it's still a broom. You can still brush. Wait, I've lost the analogy. Like, also, what I really like, as the Doctor's talking about constantly replacing and changing parts, and you know, you're no longer like what the original you was, is, and they go even further with this analogy and showing it right into your face. But if you're just listening to what the Doctor's saying, very much he's talking about regeneration still. He's very much talking about, like, you know, you keep changing all your parts and your personality and whatever, what have you. You're nothing like what you used to be, which is true, because he's nothing like William Hartnell's Doctor. And then he even goes a step further, as I said, as he holds up a reflective piece of tray, like a shiny tray, essentially, to show the reflection to the robot. And he's like, look at yourself. You're nothing. You don't even know where you got that face from. And then we cut and we see him looking at his own reflection, and we're like, ah, yes, of course, we understand now.
This was another moment where I was convinced that the Doctor finally recognized where he got the face from.
Yeah.
Like...
And then we find out that self-destruction is against the robot's programming and murder is against the Doctor's programming, but one of them has to die. So what's going to happen?
The Doctor's also going to die. This is the end of the show.
This is the last episode of Doctor Who.
What a weird way to end it would be. But yeah, we then get a scene that's pushing the gay agenda, according to 6 complaints. People complained about this scene.
Oh my god, right, okay, yeah. I was like, what? Why would they complain about this pushing the gay agenda? They're just holding their breath. And then, of course, because Jenny and Vastra have apparently a psychic link, they're talking in their heads, and Jenny's like, I can't breathe, I can't hold my breath, and Vastra's like, it's okay, I will give you some of the air from my lungs because I can hold air longer, I'm a lizard lady. And so they like kiss to spend air, which apparently annoyed some people. Even though we established they were married earlier. She had her posing like half nude to admire her body. Like,
but dude, apparently seeing 2 women kiss are gonna make us gay, dude.
Yeah, you know what? After seeing this, I'm turned on by lizards. I'm into lizards now because of this. That's what it's done to me.
But yeah, it's a shame that people are still talking about the gay agenda when it comes to Doctor Who.
Yeah, but it's a vocal minority. It's the smallest amount of people.
Yeah,
like
it's definitely louder now than it was in 2014.
Yeah, but that's because the show's political now. It was never political before, Scott.
Oh yeah,
why aren't
true,
you
good
getting
point.
this? Yeah, what's so hard to understand about that? Jesus. And then we get another good speech from Capaldi. I think his, everyone, including myself, really touts up how good the war speech is.
Yeah.
It's definitely his best speech, but I definitely think Capaldi usually gives a good speech per episode. You know, because it's Moffat writing, and Moffat knows how to write a speech. He did the same with Matt Smith. They're definitely on the same level when it comes to great Doctor Who speeches. As Capaldi saying that the robot guy really shouldn't question whether or not the Doctor's going to murder him, because he will do anything it takes to protect Earth. And he doesn't expect to be rewarded or sent to heaven for it. He will, he's willing to do what needs to be done, essentially.
There's also a great line where the Doctor's like, those people down there, they're never small to me, which is such a good Doctor line.
Yeah, it's a very Doctor Who line, something that they need to definitely remember before the Doctor goes and sends Nazis on the Master for being brown.
Yeah, it's not great, is it?
And then they separate from their struggle, and the Doctor says, you realize that one of us is lying about our basic programming. Of course, the basic programming the robot said was that it can't kill itself, and the Doctor's basic programming was that he can't kill. And we are left with the question, which one of them is lying? And, well, Scott, which one do you think is lying?
Maybe a bit of both, honestly. It could be both. Like, maybe the robot man starts to jump, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I changed my mind." Clings onto the side of a building, and the Doctor doesn't help him, which means that both of them kind of went against their programming. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. My theory when I first watched it was that the Doctor didn't kill him, because the Doctor doesn't kill. Of course, we know that the Doctor has killed before, and in some incarnations was more than willing to. Peter Davidson, and
Yeah.
I still don't know if the Doctor killed Robot Man or not. I don't know if it's been confirmed anywhere in the novelization, perhaps.
Honestly, I don't consider it murder if the thing you're murdering is just a machine.
Wow. Okay. Well, I know what side you're going to be standing on at the AI rights protests. You bigot. But we see the theory that I have that the Doctor didn't kill the robot and that the robot jumped off is in the wide shot. We see Robot Man turn slightly to face the door, like very briefly, whereas Capaldi stays staring at the Robot Man, and perhaps he's staring at him because he's about to shove him out the door, or perhaps the Robot Man's looking because the Robot Man's about to jump. I think it's better if the Robot Man jumps rather than the Doctor kills the Robot Man. But that's my personal view on what Doctor Who should be, really.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those things where if you could kill someone to save your friends and save humanity, I think it's a worthy cause. Like, whenever I read a Batman comic, I'm like, why doesn't Batman just kill the Joker? Like, it would solve so much issues, I think. Like, I know personal morality and all that, but the Joker's just going to escape, like, next week and kill everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, it's this crisis of, that's the easy solution. But the easy solution, and it would solve it, but is it the right solution? It's like in Eccleston with the Dalek ones, I think it's Eccleston anyway, where he has the option to kill all the Daleks, but also wipe out half of humanity. And he's like, it would kill the Daleks, but at what cost would it do it? And this is, he's just, at least he thinks he has, because obviously Time War shenanigans. He thinks that he just wiped out both the Gallifreyans and the Daleks in the Time War. So what's half of humanity? He's already wiped out 2 planets to get rid of them. Why not do it again? And it's this moral choice of you could kill and it would solve it, but that's not how you should solve it. You should try and find a better way, and try to be the bigger person, which is, I think, a good message for the Doctor to try and get across. It's like this impossible battle, because they're always going to come back and they're always going to be worse than you. but you have to try and find a better solution. And again, this is kind of what Capaldi gets into in his war speech, where he's like, yeah, you could blow each other up and whatnot, and but what would that solve?
Yeah.
And it's a very fun thing to try and talk about and think about.
Yeah,
like the AI thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we'll definitely be talking more about this when we cover Genesis of the Daleks later this year. Hint, hint at our schedule, but I'm very excited for that. Because Genesis of the Daleks is the episode to talk about this conflict.
I look forward to it.
I am too. It's one of the best episodes for a reason.
And then we see that the robot guy is dead. He's impaled on top of a church spire, I think it is. Imagery, you get it? And it does
I wonder how they got him down. Or how did they get him down?
Big ladder. And it does the thing. And, they established it earlier when they were like, you're the control center for all the robots. But it's this thing that happens in larger budget films and TV shows. It's like a get out of jail free card. Kill the big bad guy and all the small bad guys die.
Yeah.
Same thing happens in Avengers, like when all the aliens drop dead.
Yeah, also Peter Capaldi looks straight at the camera again.
Yes, that's what I was saying. This is his first instance of him breaking the fourth wall. And it's something that I really like in his Doctor as a recurring theme. And then we go to Clara and the Lizard Ladies and not Lizard Lady and Sontaran as they appear back at the homestead and see that the TARDIS is gone. And we're left to assume that Capaldi has abandoned Clara in the Victorian times, which is not a hard assumption to make from the Doctor that we've met throughout this episode. So it does a pretty decent job in convincing you that he's abandoned Clara. Of course, we know he hasn't, but from the thematics of the episode, you could believe it.
Imagine if he did, though. That'd be weird.
It would be a weird way to say goodbye to Clara, wouldn't it?
Also, you could just have so many adventures where the Doctor goes off without Clara at this point. Big Finish. Good place to pick up.
Yep, great bit for some Big Finish episodes to go in.
Also, we didn't mention it, but the makeup on the Silurian and the Sontaran look really, really good.
Yes, the Sontaran makeup has looked good since they brought the Sontarans back.
Yeah.
With the Tennant episode, and the Silurian makeup the same when they brought them back with Matt Smith. It's the same makeup, and it looks great. It's a really, really good looking costume.
Yeah, compared to the Sontarans in the classic show, it's a big step up.
And compared to the Silurians in the classic show,
yeah,
big step up as well. And Clara goes on to say that she doesn't think she knows who the Doctor is anymore, and just as she says that, we hear the iconic whirring of the TARDIS because, as we know, the Doctor leaves the brake on.
He never fixed that, did he?
No, he never fixed it. River Song turns the brake off in one episode, and Matt Smith's like, "Where's the whirring? I like the whirring." And so my assumption is that he keeps the brake on purpose now on because he likes the noise it makes. And then we get our first look at Capaldi's TARDIS, and they do it as if it's a big reveal, like it looks super different, but it looks almost identical to Matt Smith's TARDIS, his second TARDIS, the grey silver one, except that there's some books now.
Yeah, I can't remember how much changed. Like, were the round things there before?
No, I don't think they were. I think they've added more round things and put colour to them, and they've added bookshelves. And it looks okay. I think they redecorate Capaldi's again in his third season, maybe his second, where they add like a chalkboard and stuff like that, and that looks way better. But I'm still not the biggest fan of the silver chromey looking TARDIS.
I do like the concept of the Doctor keeping the TARDIS but redecorating it in some ways. I think that's a good idea, but they've never really done since.
Yeah. I also enjoy the line where Capaldi's like, "I want more round things on the wall. I used to have loads of them. Don't know where I put them."
Also, I do wonder how he could change the TARDIS. I thought it would be a fun montage, just seeing the Doctor go between different TARDIS designs.
Mm-hmm. It's like Tinder. You're like, you swipe left, 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 you swipe left. Shut up, Nadia. Anyway.
So Clara was supposed to have a line basically saying, "Okay, you're him, you're you. I get that, and I think I might like you, possibly. But the thing is, I'm just not sure if you like me, or you'd even tell me you did. And call me an egomaniac, which you did, and we'll be coming back to that. I kind of need that." And I'm glad we cut out that line.
Yeah, that's a big mouthful of a line and kind of sounds a bit cheesy. I much prefer what happens, which is Capaldi gets up and starts giving his monologue where he's like, "I am the Doctor. I'm 2,000 years old. I've gone on countless adventures and seen blah de blah de blah de blah," and it feels way more natural than Clara saying something weird like that.
Yeah, because if Clara still had her like schoolgirl kind of crush on the Doctor, then it would just be. I wouldn't like that. I'd be just ugh. I'm glad they dropped that plot line.
Yeah, and Capaldi has a great line, which basically ends that plot line of the crush, where he's like, "Clara, I'm not your boyfriend," and she's like, "I never thought you were," and he was like, "I never said it was your mistake." Where it's like, oh, that's a good line, where the Doctor got a bit too caught up in his own fantasy of traveling around with this young woman, you know, without taking a minute to stop and realize where he was and what he was doing.
Yeah, it's great that the Doctor takes admission to the way he's been acting when he was in the younger bodies.
Yeah.
Because he's been acting this way since Paul McGann, essentially. Like how long is that? Like 1,100 years or something like that?
Yeah, a long time. He's been a bit of a creep. And after Capaldi regenerates, he goes back to being a creep because Jodie's super young as well. At least there's no romance stories with Jodie.
True.
So
also, the girl who plays Yaz wants her to be, which I'm not on board with, because the gay agenda, of course.
Yeah, I just don't think the Doctor needs another love story after the perfect way they finished River Song.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the Doctor, at least for a good few years, the Doctor does not need to find another love story.
Yeah, at least the Doctor only needs a love story of someone his own age or another Time Lord.
Yeah, or someone who's also traveling time, like River Song.
Or me.
You know.
No, not me.
I don't want him to date me because she's like forever 12 years old.
True.
But yeah.
I wouldn't want him to date you either. It wouldn't be a good relationship. You're too needy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then we get basically the setup for the rest of the season's arc, which is like who put the advert in the newspaper, who gave you the phone number for the TARDIS all those years ago, you know, who's the one that's trying to keep us together, which of course we find out is Missy.
AKA the Master. But
yes.
I do wonder if Stephen Moffat had planned it to be Missy because remember the phone number was Series 7, Episode 7, I think?
Yeah, I doubt it. I think that it would be like, it's a, you know, because it's the police box call for help. It's like a play on that, where you call this number, and then he's like, "Oh, I have this thing I can bring back."
That's possible, but I do wonder.
Well, ask him.
I do not like the Master's role in this season anyway, to be honest. It's a bit iffy.
Yeah, I think it's saved entirely by something Gomez. Oh my god, what's her name?
Michelle Gomez.
Michelle.
Is it?
Yes, Michelle. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Michelle Gomez. I think she's incredible as the Master, and I think what they do with her in season 2 of Capaldi is way better than what they do with her in this season. I think her next season arc with John Sim, ooh, chef kiss good.
That's the final season, not next season. But yeah.
Oh, is that the final season? Yeah. chef kiss good.
Because next season was where she's with Davros. She's in the Dalek episode.
That's also good, but it's not as good as season 3 when she's locked in the place underneath the university. Yeah, very good.
And then she redeems herself, but then dies, and then she's somehow evil again. You know,
and then she becomes evil again. Yeah. And then possibly my favorite scene in this episode happens. I remember loving this scene when it first happened, and I love it again when it happened. Clara's phone rings. Why don't you like this? Why are you shaking your head? Clara's phone begins to ring, and the doctor's like, you should answer that. It could be your boyfriend. Speaking of Matt Smith, and Clara leaves the TARDIS to answer the phone, and we all squeal with glee as Matt Smith comes on to say goodbye to Clara.
There were certainly a lot of squeals from teenage girls at my screening of this episode. I'm pretty sure I heard some girls crying.
Oh my god, really? That's surprising. I remember loving this though, and I loved it when it happened again. Like, I thought it's such a nice way of saying goodbye. Like, and actually transitioning into the next Doctor, where you can have the Doctor before actually being like, this is a good person, endorse them and look after them and stuff like that. Whereas usually it's like the instant snap and then forgetting who they are.
Sure, again, but I just don't like how it's essentially the Doctor telling both Clara and the audience that it's okay, the Doctor is old now. Get used to it. It's a bit...
Yeah, but I enjoy seeing Matt Smith one last time, having him say goodbye. It was an amazing twist reveal when it happened. It really caught me by surprise.
It didn't catch me. It didn't catch me by surprise because this scene was revealed in like the Daily Mail like a couple of months before it aired, so I knew about it.
Well, that's what you get for looking at the Daily Mail. Whoever looks at that, Jesus
I didn't look
Christ.
at it willingly.
But I love this scene, and I think it's interesting. Matt Smith's Doctor got like 3 goodbyes in total, because he got the big goodbye where he does his massive regeneration, destroys all the Daleks, and then he gets his second goodbye where he sees Amy wearing the bad wig, and then he sneezes and turns into Capaldi, and now he gets his third goodbye where he's on the phone to Clara saying goodbye and look after this new Doctor.
Yeah, he does get a lot of goodbyes.
Yeah, it's almost David Tennant level where he's going around looking at everyone he traveled in time with.
I prefer this to David Tennant spending 20 minutes just looking at people.
I still like David Tennant's regeneration. I think it's very emotionally resonant.
I don't like it.
I
but
think
sure.
David Tennant's regeneration was so emotionally resonant with people that it stopped so many people watching the next season.
Yes, that's part of why I don't like it. Because they really did sell it as the Doctor is dying. There's no more Doctor Who. It'd be sad. It's over. Although it is nice seeing Matt Smith back. I will give you that.
I do love him as the Doctor. He's so good.
I do wonder when they filmed this, though.
Must have been when they're shooting the Christmas, A Town Called Christmas, surely.
I guess.
Because Matt Smith, like, was shooting a film the same time they were doing A Town Called Christmas. That's why he had to wear a wig, because for the film he had to shave his head. So yeah, probably at the same time. They would have just shot, I guess, Matt Smith stuff.
Yeah, but it's... But
Dunno, or maybe they
Yeah.
got him back, because we only really see, like, the one corner of the TARDIS. We're not really seeing the big set or anything.
Like, would Stephen Moffat have planned this in advance for this episode? I do wonder. Although I do love to consider this being like Matt Smith making sure that Jenna Louise Coleman is good to Peter Capaldi, that she's welcoming to him on set and all that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Because I love hearing stories of where a new Doctor is cast and the 2 Doctors have lunch and just give advice and all that. It's really good.
Yeah, it's always like, it's that photo of like Matt Smith and David Tennant when David Tennant regenerates into him, the 2 of them sitting on the TARDIS together. It's always fun.
Like, apparently Peter Capaldi and Matt Smith went for lunch when Peter Capaldi was cast, and Matt Smith was in crutches, and he was like, "Oh, it's this job. This is what will happen to you. You'll lose your limbs."
Which, that's pretty true. We see it. We see it with David Tennant, who left after 3 seasons. We see it with Matt Smith, who left after 3 seasons. Capaldi, who left after 3 seasons. Whittaker, who left after 3 seasons. It's a taxing job to be the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone that gets cast as it doesn't realize that until they start. Because I remember, and it might be completely false, as a kid, when Matt Smith got cast, reading that he said that he wanted to be the Doctor for longer than Tom Baker. And Capaldi probably said something similar, but then they get their 3 seasons in, and they're like, oh my god, I can't do this anymore. This is draining.
I know for a fact Colin Baker said the same thing. He was like, I want to be here longer than Tom Baker, but then he got fired, so, you know.
What could it been?
Yeah, but I do like how the 3-season things is something that's been passed along with each Doctor. Like, Troughton...
It's like a curse.
Yeah, Troughton recommended it to Davison. Davison recommended it to Tennant. Tennant to Smith. Smith to Capaldi. And I presume Tennant to Jodie Whittaker as well.
Yeah, because I think Jodie and Chibnall made a deal that they were going to do 3 seasons and bounce. Like,
yeah. But then also Chibnall says he had a 5-season plan from the start, but who knows?
Yeah. And then basically to wrap up the episode with Capaldi and Clara, Capaldi's like, I'm the same man that you just saw, that you just spoke to. I'm still like the same Doctor that Matt Smith was. I'm in front of you. Why? And then he had this great line where he's like, do you know what it feels like to be looked at and not to be recognized? You know, where it's like the being able to see who I am and not see me. Like,
and again, it kind of makes me think that it's kind of like a metaphor for being disabled or something, like a mental illness or something like that.
For me, it has being transgender metaphor.
Yeah, that's a good one as well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it resonates with me, where it's like, you know, say that you've finally transitioned and you're coming out to your family and you're like, you can't see me, you know, for who I am.
Yeah.
Like, you're just seeing this stranger almost. It's
yeah, going through something that changes you, that people don't see you as you. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to think about.
And it also adds to the tragedy of the Doctor, as we were saying, you know, where he's got this new face, he's around someone who he thought he could trust, and then even they're acting like he's a stranger, and which makes him feel even more isolated than he already does.
And which makes me hate Clara more than I already did, honestly.
And then Clara hugs Capaldi, and he says a line that I personally resonated with, where he goes, I don't think I'm a hugging person now. I was like, yeah, neither am I. Yeah.
You can tell that by a profile picture where I'm hugging you, and you're like, oh no.
I'm not much of a hugger, personally.
You do look horrified in our profile picture.
That's just because I'm next to you.
Ouch. Wow.
They missed a perfect opportunity here. So the Doctor thinks they're back in London or whatever to drop Clara off, and Clara's like, we're not at my home. Where are we? And the Doctor's like, oh yeah, we're in Glasgow. Sorry. I so wish it was Aberdeen.
Same here.
And, you know, not because I'm from Aberdeen, although I do love it when Doctor Who references Aberdeen, because I'm like, oh, that's where I live. But just because he always ends up abandoning people in Aberdeen. I think he did it to Sarah Jane twice.
I think so, maybe.
Because he did it when they said goodbye, and then when I think they end up in Aberdeen again with David Tennant. Although I think they're just going for a walk. I don't think he's abandoning her at that point.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't remember, but he definitely abandoned Sarah Jane in Aberdeen, and it's just a fun callback. If you're going to be in Scotland with the Doctor, make it Aberdeen, for the history, and also because it's where I'm from, and I want it.
there is a Peter Capaldi episode that's apparently set in Aberdeen, but I've never saw it.
I think that was it.
The Eaters of Light.
Yeah, but it's not like modern day Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And I think it's inside the whole time, possibly.
Yeah, I never saw that. That's like the only episode I've never seen.
Yeah, it's set like during Roman times.
Well, I was alive then. Don't know about you.
Yeah, I've definitely seen this episode. And yeah, they're in like Scottish fields, and they're like, oh, this is where Aberdeen will be. And it's like, oh, it's like you couldn't shoot in Aberdeen because it's such a horrendously grey city. So you decided to shoot in a field and decided to call that Aberdeen. Great. Also, Clara says something, and maybe it's English slang that I don't know. she's like, the doctor's like, do I get some coffee or chips or coffee and chips? And Clara's like, yeah, but you're buying. And the doctor's like, I don't have money. And Clara says, well, you're fetching then.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Does she mean as in fetching the chips and coffee?
Yeah, I presume maybe that she hands him the money, and then he'll go up to the counter, maybe.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's a weird thing. I'm gonna say it's an English thing.
Yeah, anything weird is English.
Yeah.
But then it was written by a Scottish guy, so I don't
but a
know.
Scottish guy lives in London.
True. Also, the ending where they go get chips reminds me of that the end of the world in Christopher Eccleston's season.
Yeah, I was about to say Eccleston
Yeah.
and Rose. Yeah. But then the episode isn't quite done yet. It's almost done as we see Robot Man wake up in paradise and we meet Missy. And she's like, welcome to heaven. I'm Missy. And she does a wee dance. And that wraps the episode.
A very tagged on ending by a different director than who directed the actual episode as well. Because the ending was directed by Rachel Talalay, who directed all of Peter Capaldi's series finals and the final Christmas special he did. Which, yeah.
Interesting. And then to wrap up, we get a classic Next Time on Doctor Who. And what I was expecting, because this is the first episode of the season, was it to be like coming up in the season, but it's not. It's just showing us what's happening in the next episode, which is Into the Dalek, a solid okay episode. I don't really remember. They showed just the next episode trailer when usually they show the end of season trailer or the trailer for the upcoming season, and I thought that was a very strange choice.
Yeah, I wonder if they showed like a trailer for the first 6 episodes, that more people would be on board for Capaldi's season. The season overall wasn't that good, but I think there is a few great episodes, unique episodes, like Mummy on the Orient Express and Time Heist is pretty good as well.
Time Heist is pretty good, but the issue that this season has is Listen's pretty good as well. I really enjoyed Listen, but the issue that this season has is it has 2 of the worst episodes of New Who ever, which is Kill the Moon and In the Forest of the Night. 2 atrociously bad episodes with bad messages. It's a bit all over the place this season. But that does bring us to the end of the episode, Scott. So what are your feelings and thoughts?
Honestly, a bit of a letdown. I think it might be the weakest episode we've done so far, apart from like Resurrection, maybe. Yeah, I'm not too keen on this one. I don't think it has enough narrative, and I think if it wasn't for Peter Capaldi, this episode probably would have suffered quite a bit more. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't think it's the weakest episode we've covered. I think the weakest episode, honestly, is The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I think that's a much weaker episode than this one, mainly because this one has characters I care about. I think this episode is basically carried by Capaldi and Jenna Coleman, but most of their episodes are. I think, the villain's mostly forgettable. It's an okay twist on bringing back a classic New Who villain for a pretty mediocre story. Definitely not the strongest opening to a season that we've had, but as we said, this season's pretty lackluster in total. And it's a real shame, I think, for Capaldi's Doctor to have a mediocre opening followed by a pretty bad season. Yeah. I think it's like stumbling out the gate, and it really took them a while to recover from that stumble with his Doctor. And eventually they crafted one of my favorite Doctors of all time, but it did take them a good long while to get there.
I think The Woman Who Fell to Earth is a lot better, because I think the companions, at least in that episode, have some sort of intrigue to them. They're not kind of like one note. Whereas here, Clara's like, oh, the Doctor is old now, I'm sad. Strax is like, are you a boy or a girl? And it's like, all the characters are kind of one note, which is my issue with it.
Yeah, but at least it's a note. Whereas I don't think they have really any notes in The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I just remember, you know, in our dissection of The Woman Who Fell to Earth, finding multiple plot holes and plot conveniences and weird motivations and things like that. And we really didn't find any here. It's a pretty tight, if not forgettable plot. And yes, I think they rely too heavily on the quippy, funny, jokey Moffat language. But I would rather rewatch this episode than rewatch The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
I think I'm probably just a little bit disappointed because I remember seeing this in cinemas and thinking it was amazing. Oh, not amazing, but pretty decent. And now it's like revisiting it and just seeing some elements that never got carried through to a proper show enough.
I have the same reaction to this episode as I did when I first saw it, which was, it was fine.
Yeah. Because I remember thinking the Missy reveals would be so much more interesting than it was. And then it kind of just turned into, oh, I'm the master again.
But they turned something good with Missy.
Yeah.
Like, they did something great with Missy. I think the biggest letdown is them teasing out Capaldi's face and making it a big plot point in this episode and not doing anything with it for a year and a half. I think that really let them down. But, you know, them's the way the dice rolled.
Is this the longest episode we've covered? I think it is.
Longest episode? Yes.
Not counting the movie.
And not counting Classic Who episodes mushed together into one long one. And yeah, I don't think that the season needs to be an hour 20 long opener. I think it's definitely a way too long opening.
You could cut 15 minutes from this easily, especially the parts without the Doctor where the characters are just sitting around waiting for the Doctor to reappear.
Yeah, you could cut out most of the sketches with Clara and Strax, and then you'd have a tight 40-minute episode.
Yeah, honestly.
But that oh my god, I can't talk. But that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Next week we are doing the news.
Yes.
Next week it is the end of month news roundup. So if you haven't, email us. Email us at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. Some questions, and we'll read them out. I know personally, from speaking to my flatmate who's a listener of the show, that he's been meaning to email for ages, and he just hasn't yet. So if you're like him and are been meaning to email, heckin' do it. What you waiting for? Chat to us.
And unlike Matthew's flatmate, we'll actually answer your emails. We don't care about Matthew's flatmate.
But you can find us on social media, on Twitter at Watches Doctor, on Facebook at Who Watches Who, on YouTube at Who Watches Who. I think we're still the number one search result. Our SEO is ridiculously good for some reason. I don't get it. I'm not going to question it. It's really good. Search Who Watches Who. We should be the first result. It's pretty great. This podcast is available everywhere you get podcasts. All the links for everything's in the description. You can find me at Cloth223. Scott, do you have anything else to say?
No, that's it. That's everything covered.
What are we doing after the news?
We are doing Christopher Eccleston's new box set the week after.
Yeah,
which
so
should be fun.
If you haven't got that yet, go on your Big Finish app, purchase it, listen to it, and then spend a couple hours listening to us talk about it. I'm looking forward to doing that, and I'm hoping it's better than his first box set was. Not that it was bad, it was just a bit confusing. But other than that, see you next week. Same Doctor Who time, same Doctor Who channel.
Smooth. See ya.
Bye-bye.